Primary election day in Florida just about 3 weeks away.
Stand by to meet the candidates.
This original program is provided as a public service by WSRE, the League of Women Voters, and Pensacola State College.
Good evening and welcome to Rally 2012. I'm Drexel Gilbert with WSRE TV.
And I'm Sandra Averhart with WUWF Public Media.
This is the last of 3 nights of primary election coverage on WSRE TV, PBS for the Gulf Coast.
Rally 2012 allows you the opportunity to meet candidates from primary races in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, as well as candidates in the state races that impact these counties.
That's right. Now tonight the spotlight is on the races in Escambia County as well as 4 state races. We're going to begin with those state races: Public Defender 1st Judicial Circuit, State Representative Districts 2 and 3, and Circuit Judge Group 15.
And then we will move on to the Escambia County contest for Clerk of the Circuit Court, Sheriff, County Commission, Districts 1, 3, and 5, and ECUA, Districts 1, 3, and 5.
The questions for the candidates this evening have been provided to us by the League of Women Voters Pensacola Bay Area and in some cases also the League of Women Voters in Okaloosa County.
The candidates have not yet seen the questions. They've not seen the questions, and they will have 45 seconds to respond. Following the question and answer session, each candidate will have an additional 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement.
It's time now to get started with the questions for the candidates. And we are going to begin with the race for Public Defender 1st Judicial Circuit. There are 2 Republican candidates in this race. There is no Democratic candidate. This is a universal race, meaning that every registered voter in the 1st Judicial Circuit can vote in this race, regardless of party affiliation. Also, this race will be decided on August 14th. Our candidates are seated in alphabetical order this evening. Let's meet them. The first candidate that we will introduce to you tonight is Bruce A. Miller. Mr. Miller is the challenger in this race. He faces the incumbent, who is the second candidate we are introducing alphabetically this evening, and he is James Owens. And welcome to you, gentlemen. Glad that you're here this evening. It's time for the questions, and we are going to begin with you, Mr. Miller. What are the most important qualities to look for in filling attorney positions on the staff? You have 45 seconds.
You have to find people that are interested in working at the Public Defender's Office, that have a passion for the work, understand that it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of hours, and the pay is not going to be as great as they might experience in the private sector. And if you have people that want to work in the Public Defender's Office and are committed to the mission, then you'll have a good employee.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Owens. What are the most important qualities to look for in filling attorney positions on the staff?
Well, we believe the keys to effective representation is the talent that you hire from the beginning. And the talents that we look for are people that have a passion about the job, that care about helping others, and that want to reach their full potential, that want to become the best lawyer they can be.
All right, thank you. And now it's on to question number 2. What are your views on the standard that should apply to relationships between attorneys and clients in the Public Defender's Office? And this time, Mr. Owens, we will start with you, and you have 45 seconds.
All right, please state the question again.
Absolutely. What are your views on the standards that should apply to relationships between attorneys and clients in the Public Defender's Office?
Well, you should maintain a good relationship with all the clients. You know, our assistant public defenders throughout the circuit, which includes the 4 counties, have hundreds of clients that they represent each year. So you should try to maintain a good relationship with those clients throughout the process. A lot of our clients are in custody or in jail, so you have to maintain contact with them at the jail. Clients that are out of custody, you have to maintain contact with them in person or in court.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Miller, would you like for me to repeat the question for you?
No, thank you. I'm good. It should be obviously a professional relationship. It's an attorney-client relationship. You should not make friends or try to make friends or socialize with your clients in the Public Defender's Office. Beyond that, after you've established your professional relationship, you need to keep contact with them, you need to educate them, and you need to get their trust as their attorney so that they will have the benefit of your advice, but nothing more than a professional relationship with a client of the Public Defender's Office.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. And now we're moving on to question number 3, but before we do that, a reminder to those of you who have just joined us that you are watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. Question number 3 for the candidates in the Public Defender's Office this evening. To what extent should the public defender have to approve plea bargaining decisions and request for alternatives to incarceration? And we will begin this time with you, Mr. Miller.
I don't know if the question means the actual elected public defender or the assistant public defender that is handling the case, but I think it would be almost impossible for the elected public defender to be involved to that level and that detail to actually approve all plea bargains. Plea bargains are actually encouraged by the Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure to get into plea bargaining. And obviously, whether a client accepts or declines a plea bargain, it's up to the client. All you can do as the attorney is educate them as to the law, let them know the position of their case, and give them the benefit of your counsel.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Owens, would you like for me to repeat the question for you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Our system is based on compromise. You know, in the First Judicial Circuit, we have 70 assistant public defenders handling approximately 35,000 to 40,000 cases a year. All those cases cannot be tried, so they must be resolved by negotiation, and the plea agreement is the way to do that. The prosecutor and the assistant public defender look at the strengths and the weaknesses of their respective cases, and they try to come up with a solution that is fair and just to both parties.
All right, thank you. And now it's time for question number 4. In your opinion, how well do sentencing guidelines permit the leniency that you sometimes consider appropriate in cases handled by the office? And the question goes to you first, Mr. Owens.
Well, I do disagree somewhat with some of the minimum mandatories that are being imposed on some of the drug offenses that involve first-time offenders with a small amount of drugs where they have to do a large percentage of jail time. I think that should be modified, and that should be utilized on a case-by-case basis where the court can consider the circumstances of the individual. And that's the biggest issue with our office over the last 4 years, has been that one issue.
All right, and the question now goes to you, Mr. Miller. Would you like for me to repeat that?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I think the sentencing guidelines and probably what the questioner is referring to more might be the minimum or the mandatory sentences that have been imposed by Tallahassee. I think some of the minimum mandatories and the mandatory sentences sometimes frustrates the judges. That's been my experience. It's also been my experience that they frustrate some of the assistant state attorneys because every case is different, and the judges should have the discretion because they are the ones that are familiar with the case, and they should have the discretion to have a little leeway to do what is appropriate because one size sometimes does not fit all.
All right, thank you. And now the final question this evening to these two candidates. Question number 5, gentlemen. What procedures should be in place for monitoring the performance of staff attorneys, especially those in the early stages of their public defender careers? And this question goes to you first, Mr. Miller.
Well, you have to be a hands-on leader. You have to be in the office, and you have to talk to your assistant public defenders. You need to talk to the assistant state attorneys. You need to stay in communication. You need to observe what's going on. I have a lot of business experience prior to becoming a lawyer, and the thing that I learned is that you have to be there, and you have to have work ethic, and you have to have vision, because if you don't, nobody else will. So it's very fundamental. You just stay in the office, you watch and observe it, you know what's going on.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Owens. Would you like for me to repeat
Please.
that? All right. The last question, what procedures should be in place for monitoring the performance of staff attorneys, especially those that are in the early stages of their public defender careers?
Well, it's critical for a young lawyer to be monitored in the courtroom. You've got 70 lawyers in the office in 4 counties, but not every one of those is filled every day. So you've got some new lawyers coming in, and those need to be monitored the first 6 months to a year by a supervisor just about every day that they go to court. And many times, every day of the week, the lawyer's in court. But that's where you learn on your feet how to handle cases and how to address the court, how to negotiate. And if you have a supervisor there that can give you immediate attention and response to whether you're doing something wrong or right, then you can correct whatever mistakes immediately so they won't make them again.
All right, thank you. And gentlemen, that does conclude the questions for the Public Defender First Judicial Circuit race. Now each of you will have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We began the questions with you, Mr. Miller, so we will begin the closing statements with you, Mr. Owens.
Well, I won election in 2008, and I made a promise to run a more efficient office, and I've kept my promise. Over the last 3.5, 4 years, we have saved the taxpayers $2.9 million from the general revenue of the 07-08 budget. We've been doing this by increasing collections of our clients to help offset some of the cost, and we've been able to run the office more efficiently by restructuring the office, reducing some staff, increasing the attorneys to handle the excessive caseload that we have. I believe that we will continue to find ways to be more efficient and still train our young lawyers to be effective at representing each and every client and ensuring that justice is served.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. Miller, your closing statement, and you have 45 seconds, sir.
Thank you. I would ask the voters to fact check. 4 years ago, my opponent promised that he and all his supervising attorneys would carry a caseload. That hasn't happened. He promised the voters to get their vote that he would not go to Tallahassee and ask for more money. He just went to Tallahassee and asked for an additional $1 million in addition to his annual budget. And now he's claiming that he saved the office money. Fact is that the cases that are coming into the office have decreased 14%, but the overall expenditure has increased. And it now costs 33% more to handle one single case than it did when he came into office. I have extensive business experience in law, and I've worked in the public defender's office for 12 years.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Owens did raise his hand for a rebuttal to that statement, so we are going to go to Mr. Owens, and you have 30 seconds, sir.
Okay. I have never gone to Tallahassee and asked for more money for my office. I have gone to Tallahassee and told the legislatures there we would work within whatever budget, whatever cuts we were given. He's referring to the Public Defenders Association, which are the 20 public defenders in the state. As a group, they collectively agreed to ask for an increase in the budget from the 07-08 numbers. I did not agree to that. I have always maintained that we would work within whatever budget.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Miller, you raised your hand, so you have 30 seconds, sir.
Thank you. That's just misleading. Actually, the last budget request to Tallahassee asked for more than $1 million, 11 new positions with an annual salary of $40,000 for 11 new attorneys, and a brand new four-wheel drive SU vehicle. That's what this office asked Tallahassee for. And we're not fishing game, it's the Public Defender's Office.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Miller. And that concludes the question and answers for the first race here on Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. And we have a lot more to come, Sandra.
Exactly. Coming up, we have our State House District 3 race and much more.
There is nothing more important to our democratic process than having an informed electorate voting on Election Day. Good evening. I'm Ed Meadows, President of Pensacola State College, thanking you for tuning into Rally 2012, a joint presentation of the League of Women Voters, WSRE TV, and Pensacola State College. Rally allows you the opportunity to watch and listen as this election year slate of candidates answer the tough questions concerning the needs of our community and state. WSRE, a service of Pensacola State College, is proud to bring this program to you as a public service. And as always, we invite your comments and suggestions about how we can further fulfill our community obligations. Let's all remember the importance of participating in the governance process by voting in this upcoming election.
Welcome back to Rally 2012 as we continue to count down the Florida primary election, which is coming up in just 3 weeks, Drexel, here on August 14th. And tonight we are talking to the candidates for several state races as well as Escambia County races. These candidates are here in our studios answering questions, and these questions provided by the League of Women Voters from both the Pensacola Bay Area and in some cases the Okaloosa County League has contributed to some of the questions. Now, next up, we'll toss it to Drexel, is State Representative District 3, but we wanted to quickly let you know that both of the candidates in the State House District 2 race, Jeremy Basso and Clay Ford, had previously committed to be here tonight, but neither of those candidates could make it. So with that in mind, we are moving on to State House District 3.
And so we shall do that. There are 2 Republican candidates in the State House District 3 race, and the one who wins the primary will face a write-in opponent in November. The first candidate in the race for State Representative District 3 that we will introduce tonight in alphabetical order is the incumbent Doug Broxson, and seated next to him, again, we're going in alphabetical order this evening as we've done all week long, is his challenger, Jair Williamson. Gentlemen, welcome to Rally 2012.
Thank you.
We're glad that you were able to join us this evening. We are going to begin the questions now, and Mr. Broxson, we will start with you. Question 1. To lessen our dependence on imports, some groups advocate ending the current ban on oil and gas drilling in the Gulf of Mexico off of Florida's coast. What is your position on ending or modifying the current ban?
Because of the recent oil spill, and we have really, in Florida, changed our entire position on drilling offshore. Until they can prove that we can absolutely prove the safety of our beaches, we will not have drilling. In the Panhandle, we have a unique problem, and that is the military presence. Eglin has a zone over the Gulf that can never be drilled in. We've made that commitment to them. We've reaffirmed it. The military is just too important. And we want to do our part in energy production so that we will be less dependent, but we cannot do it at the expense of our economy, which is tourism.
All right, thank you, Mr. Broxson. And now the question is posed to you, Mr. Williamson. Would you like for me to repeat it for you?
Please.
All right. To lessen our independence on imports, some groups advocate ending the current ban on oil and gas drilling in the Gulf of Mexico off of Florida's coast. What is your position, sir, on ending or modifying the current ban?
I would not be for ending. I think we need to look at all ways that we can explore drilling for oil on land, but not in the Gulf of Mexico at this time. We have the most beautiful beaches in the world, and people come to this area because they love our beaches. Our tourism is such a big thing, and we've seen what an impact that oil spill can have on a community, and we face some of that, and Louisiana faced it even worse. So no, I would not be for that.
All right, thank you. And the second question now will be posed to you first, Mr. Williamson. Recent events have brought national attention to the state's Stand Your Ground law, with many analysts urging modification of the law to better define how it applies and how it should be implemented. What modifications, if any, would you recommend the legislature make to minimize unintended interpretation by law enforcement agents and the courts?
I personally don't believe that any word of the Stand Your Ground law should be changed. I am a firm believer in our Second Amendment right. I believe it's what makes this country so great, that we have the right to keep and bear arms. And I'm very proud to be the only candidate in this race with an A rating from the NRA, but I would not change a single word.
All right, and the question now is posed to you, Mr. Broxson. Would you like for me to repeat that question for you,
Please.
sir? Recent events have brought national attention to the state's Stand Your Ground law, with many analysts urging modification of the law to better define how it applies and how it should be implemented. What modifications, if any, would you recommend to the legislature to minimize unintended interpretations by law enforcement agents and the courts?
As you know, the governor has a task force to simply review the law. It is a good law. It's worked. The situation that we're facing now with the terrible consequences of a young man being killed had really nothing to do with Stand Your Ground. It's a law that's designed to protect people and their personal property. And in my opinion, based on what I've talked to my other colleagues in the House, we will not make any adjustment to that law, and we will stand firm on Stand Your Ground.
All right, thank you, sir. And we're moving along now in the race for State Representative District 3 in the Florida primary, and we are up to question number 3. And this question will go to you first, Mr. Broxson. Many critics of the state's environmental laws charge that cost considerations are given too much weight compared to public health considerations in deciding whether to enact restrictions on water and air pollution. How do you assess these claims? And the question again goes to you first, Mr. Broxson.
Well, I can only speak for the Panhandle. We are rich in water. Our air quality is good. But the thing that we have to remember, we have to balance out our economy with environmental issues. And people must have good jobs. They must be treated with the respect that we have for the economy. But to make wholesale changes that we've done in the last several years at the expense of people, where the Gulf Power bill could double or triple, we simply cannot do that, and this legislature will not pass anything that will put that burden on the citizens of this state.
Thank you, Mr. Broxson. And now, Mr. Williamson, would you like for me to repeat the question for you, sir?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Many critics of the state's environmental laws charge that cost considerations are given too much weight compared to public health considerations in deciding whether to enact restrictions on water and air pollution. How do you assess those claims, sir?
By no means do we want to do anything that would affect our aquifer. We have good groundwater and everything in our area, but what often happens with the EPA and with their different organizations is they choose animals, they choose other things over people's lives. And I think that we need to make sure that we can keep things the cost down for our community, and I believe that we have to do things where we can create jobs in a costly manner and not always put it off on on other people and other businesses.
All right, thank you, sir. And again, you're watching Rally 2012. We are posing questions now to the candidates for the State Representative District 3 race. These questions come to us from the League of Women Voters of both the Pensacola Bay area and also Okaloosa County. And we are up to question 4 now, and this time we will begin with you, Mr. Williamson. Current mandatory sentence requirements for drug offenses are under attack on the grounds that they may keep judges from imposing alternative penalties they consider more appropriate, especially for drug users. Where do you stand on this issue?
I think that mandatory minimums, that we need to have them in place, because I feel that if you do a crime, then you deserve to serve the time for that crime how it's seen fit. And I'm not about getting people out onto the streets that have committed crimes any sooner than they deserve to be.
Thank you. And Mr. Broxson, now the question goes to you. Would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
There's no question Florida has made a substantial commitment to having more prisons and going to an 85% term served. However, we're beginning to look. We've had Texas testify before committee to say that they have a 3-tier system that says there's 3 types of prisoners. There's those who will come in that will never come back. They made a mistake. There's those that must stay in prison because they're a danger to the public. And then there's a middle group that with proper rehabilitation have some chance of coming back and being a citizen that can make a contribution to our society. We can't just throw away people. We have too many families that are affected, and we've got to do our job to make the system better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Broxson. Question number 5. Hurricane season has brought calls for another look at issues surrounding the state Citizens Property Insurance Corporation as premium levels, financial risk, emergency assessments on all homeowners insurance policies, and the corporation's very existence. What are your thoughts about the corporation and how it operates? And this question goes first to you, Mr. Williamson.
I think the government's too involved in the insurance business. We need to get out of the insurance business. We need to open it up to private sector and let that drive the cost down for our community.
All right, thank you. And my apologies, that question should have gone to you first, Mr. Broxson. We'll make up for it on the next one if that is agreeable to you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Broxson. Hurricane season has brought calls for another look at such issues surrounding the Citizens Property Insurance Corporation as premium levels, financial risk, emergency assessments on all homeowners insurance policies, and the corporation's very existence. Would you tell us, please, your thoughts about the corporation and how it operates?
In 04 and 05, we had 5 major hurricanes that hit Florida. There's no question that the insurance system broke down temporarily. That's when we asked citizens to step in and fill in the gap so people could close on their homes. But what happened is that they continue to grow, and now they're the largest property insurance company in the world. One of my members wanted to change the name of Citizens to Citizens-Backed Insurance Company, and that's exactly what they are. It will put a tremendous burden on the people of this state if we have a major hurricane, and they will not like it. So we must depopulate Citizens and come up with better alternatives.
All right, thank you, Mr. Broxson. And now to question number 6 in the State Representative District 3 race here on Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. It has been reported that the Florida Commission on Ethics plans to ask for more time to pursue persons who fail to pay fines imposed for financial disclosure violations and for an increase in fines it can impose for flouting ethics rules. How would you respond to these requests? And the question is posed to you first, Mr. Broxson.
There was some questions there are many fines that have not been paid over the years. There's no penalty for not paying those fines. I am certainly in favor. If a person has been found to be guilty of an infraction, they should pay the penalty. Otherwise, if we're not going to collect it, why have it? So I would be for and would vote for that we have some mechanism to enforce that these fines be paid.
All right, thank you. Mr. Williamson, would you like for me to repeat the question for you, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I would say that absolutely the penalties need to be, the fines need to be paid, and I would go as far as if they don't pay them in a timely manner, then remove them from office. If you do something that you deserve, you get a fine, then it should be paid by a government official. The government official should not be held to any higher standard than the everyday people, and they need to be paid the fines and remove them from office if they're not going to abide by the law.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And that does conclude the question and answer session now for the State Representative District 3 race in the Florida primary. And now each of the candidates has 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We began the questioning with Mr. Broxson. We will begin the closing statements with you, Mr. Williamson.
When you elect a state representative, you're hiring somebody who goes to Tallahassee with the main function of writing and repealing law. The facts are, my opponent in 2011 didn't get a single bill out of committee. This past session, he passed a bill, eminent domain, and also named a boat in Key West. If you think that we're better off in Northwest Florida because the government is able to take private property rights of citizens of St. Augustine, or because we named a boat in Key West, then I am not your candidate. But if you want somebody who loves this community and will work hand in hand with the representatives to write and repeal law that positively affects the people of Northwest Florida, then I am your man. It would be an honor and a privilege to be your next state representative.
All right, Mr. Broxson, it is now time for your closing statement. You are raising your hand that you want to rebut. Do you choose to do that in your closing statement? Or
I will close. That's
okay.
Fine. I often say that the Panhandle is a special place. What makes it special? Is it our beaches, or is it our work ethic, or our great natural resources? Yes, but there's something else that makes us special, and that is, and I tell my colleagues in Tallahassee, that we are so conservative because we believe all of our rights come from God and not from government. It is an honor and a privilege to serve a constituency that believes in those fundamental rights and faith in our country. And I will continue to do that, to fight for you. Every single constituent that has a problem, we will make sure that you're heard, and we'll do our very best to find a remedy. Thank you.
all right, now just to clarify, because we want everything to be fair, would you like now Mr. Broxson to rebut Mr. Williamson's closing statement? Yes.
I was more than happy, more than proud to sponsor a bill that had to do with the School for Deaf and Blind in St. Augustine. We have 26 community colleges, 9 universities. All had a privilege except our one university, one school that's owned by the state, the School for the Deaf and Blind. My colleagues overwhelmingly agreed with me and passed that bill. It was a great law. It protects the most innocent among us, that's the blind and the deaf, and I would do it over and over again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Broxson. And Mr. Williamson, you have raised your hand, so you would like to rebut as well. You have 30 seconds, sir.
And I believe that the School of Deaf and Blind is a noble cause, but anytime the word fairness and eminent domain and the government taking people's private property away, to me, those don't go hand in hand. And I also will go back to the facts that naming a boat in Key West is not making Santa Rosa or Okaloosa or Escambia County better, and I will work to make this community better.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And those were the candidates for State House District 3. And again, the winner faces a write-in candidate in November.
And Drexel, the final race we will cover tonight, the final state race, is for Circuit Judge Group 15. Now, this is a universal, nonpartisan race that will be decided in the primary vote. There are 2 candidates in this race, and the first candidate to be introduced tonight is Terry Ketchel. Mr. Ketchel is the incumbent, and he is being challenged by the second candidate joining us this evening, and that candidate is Mr. Thomas S. Murphy. The questions you received tonight have been prepared for us by the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters. Let's get started, and Mr. Ketchel, the first question will go to you. Florida's large prison population, and there are over 100,000 prisoners in Florida's prisons. The large population raises concerns that the state is making insufficient use of alternatives to incarceration. Under what conditions do you believe alternatives to incarceration might be appropriate?
The problem with that question is that these are policy questions that the legislature is responsible for. As a judge, we're in a very tricky situation because we have to administer the law. We have to administer any type of alternative sanctions that are available, but we are not tasked with creating the policy toward alternative or more standard types of prison populations. So that is not something that we really venture into. What I would say is that we will utilize those alternative sanctions that the legislature feels are appropriate.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ketchel. And that question now to Mr. Murphy. Under what conditions do you believe that alternatives to incarceration might be appropriate?
Unfortunately, my answer is going to mirror somewhat of my opponent's. It is a policy question, and that's set forth by the legislature. As a candidate for circuit judge or an incumbent judge, those are issues that we really can't touch on. Again, I would say that any diversionary program or other alternatives that are available under the legislative scheme, I would certainly be interested in looking at and applying if they are rational and would work in the particular situation.
All right, thank you. Our next question, and it will go first to Mr. Murphy. What is your position on the question of whether there is a need for increasing the use of mediation and other out-of-court settlement efforts in Florida?
Well, I believe that mediation is an excellent way to remove many issues out of the courthouse and out of the docket. Mediation is an agreed upon settlement. If 2 parties can agree, we're all better off. It costs us less in time, resources, and manpower, and a settlement that's worked out is agreeable to the parties. And so that works very well in our system. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That question now to you, Mr. Ketchel. Would you like me to read it again?
No, I think I understand it.
Okay.
In fact, the alternative to trials and the use of mediation is actually very widespread throughout our circuit already. Almost virtually every family law case is required to have mediation prior to going to trial, and the same for civil trials. It's not appropriate in criminal matters. It's not appropriate in some other types of areas. But in those areas where it is appropriate, where you have 2 parties in a civil matter, in almost all cases, mediation is already mandated, and I strongly support that because it does allow the parties to resolve their dispute as opposed to having a third party, which would be the judge, making that final decision.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Murphy would like to offer a rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Thank you. While not appropriate mediation in the criminal system, we do have something that's very much like mediation, and it's negotiation. And oftentimes the case can be resolved between the defendant and the state in negotiation, alleviating the need for a trial. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next question will go first to Mr. Ketchel. The question is, 13 states, including Mississippi and North Carolina, have decriminalized the possession of small amounts of marijuana for personal use. What would be the impact, in your opinion, in Florida's circuit courts if the Florida legislature passed a similar law?
Well, again, you're asking me to venture into a policy area, and there may be pros and cons to that, but we're venturing into a policy area that we cannot. If I make a decision here today and make a statement with regards to that type of question, then if that comes before my court, the people that would be opposed to that position would actually recuse me. So I apologize for backing off from trying to answer questions, but when it regards policy questions, the judges cannot do it. Our responsibility as judges is to follow the rule of law, to follow the law fairly and impartially, not to make the law.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Murphy, that same question to you, and we remind you that these questions come from the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters and also the Okaloosa County League. Mr. Murphy, to you, what do you think the impact of Florida's circuit courts, or would be the impact on Florida's circuit courts if the Florida legislature passed similar legislation decriminalizing the use or the possession of small amounts of marijuana?
Unfortunately, again, this is one of those policy questions that I cannot answer. We would have to leave that issue to the wisdom of our legislature. What they decide will be the law, and as a judge, we will follow and enforce that law.
All right, thank you. Our next question goes first to Mr. Murphy. What action, if any, do you consider appropriate when a judge observes parties in a case being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective attorney?
That's an interesting question. I do believe that judges have an obligation to assist in the courtroom to help mentor and monitor the attorneys to ensure that they are practicing at the highest level of professionalism. I think initially one thing to do would be to talk to that attorney if you perceive there to be a problem and see if that in itself wouldn't improve the behavior or the performance of that attorney. If that doesn't work, then there's certainly other steps you can take, including contacting the Florida Bar.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Ketchel, that same question to you. What action, if any, would you consider appropriate if you or a judge observes parties being represented by an attorney unprepared or ineffective?
Well, it depends to a very large degree on the degree of lack of preparation. There are certain situations where we would be required to report that to the Florida Bar. But in almost all situations, you have one attorney or the other that may be more or less prepared or more or less skilled. And the real responsibility of the judge is to conduct the trial. And I've conducted over 500 trials in the last 5.5 years that I've been on the circuit bench, to conduct the trial fairly and impartially. And so by doing that, you have to make sure that the proper evidence comes in on both sides so that you can make the decision properly.
All right, thank you very much. We're now up to our fifth and final question for these Circuit Judge Group 15 candidates. The final question is, what are your views on limiting the number of consecutive terms a circuit judge can serve? And Mr. Ketchel, you get that one first.
Well, in Florida, unlike the federal judiciary, in Florida we have a mandatory retirement age of 70 under the Florida Constitution. And I think that's a valid way to try to limit the participation of judges. There actually is a movement to raise that to 75. Particularly in the circuit bench and the circuit judiciary, experience is very, very important. And so the more experience you can have within your judiciary, you actually strengthen your judiciary. So I think that the 70 age limit is appropriate, but anything more than that I think would hurt the judiciary.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. Murphy, your opportunity for this question. What are your views on limiting the number of consecutive terms a circuit court judge can serve?
Well, I would agree somewhat with my opponent that there is something to say for the experience of a judge on the bench. The more they've been there, the more cases they've heard, the more they've been involved in the law itself. You have to remember that not all of us come from commercial law or from criminal law or from contract law or from family law. And so there is something to be said for that. With that said, though, I also think that we need to keep judges from being career politicians. And so I think that if we have a mechanism in place to limit the terms of judges, that could also be a good thing.
All right, thank you. And that completes the question and answer session. And now you, our candidates, have 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. And we'll begin with you first, Mr. Murphy.
Well, thank you very much. I've not always been I've not been a politician in my life before. I'm a public servant. I spent 24 years in service to our nation as a soldier in the United States Army. I've been a prosecutor serving our state, and I've been a public defender serving our citizens. And I'd like to continue to serve the public trust. I believe that these unique combinations of life experience and work experience make me the best candidate for this position. I will treat everyone that comes before the court fairly, with respect, and let them have their day in court. I will treat you honestly, fairly, and follow the law. Thank you very much. I hope for your support and your vote on August the 14th. Thomas Murphy for Circuit Judge. Thank you and God bless.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. And now to you, Mr. Ketchel, 45 seconds for your closing statement.
Well, thank you very much. It has been my honor as a lifelong resident of Northwest Florida to serve as your circuit judge since 2006. And in that period of time, I have handled over 10,000 cases and presided over 500 civil, family, and criminal trials, many of which are very complex and difficult. And as your judge, as your circuit judge, you need the experience that I bring of 28 years in the legal profession, of professionalism and high integrity. And I promise you that I will always follow the rule of law, no legislating from the bench.
We have a request for a rebuttal. Mr. Murphy, 30 seconds.
I would like to add that I have been the attorney of record in over 10,000 cases. I've tried many criminal cases. So you have to look not only at the years of experience, but at the quality and the quantity of experience. With the Public Defender's Office and the State Attorney's Office, I'm used to the large caseloads, I know how to deal with them, and I know how to treat people fairly and with respect. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks to you, gentlemen. These were the candidates for Circuit Judge Group 15.
All right, in just a moment, candidates from various races in Escambia County will be in our studios to answer questions about important issues. Here's a look at some of those races that are just ahead.
Thanks for watching this year's rally event on WSRE TV. I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas. Dr. Paula Montgomery and I serve as co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. For over 20 years, the leagues here and in Okaloosa County have provided questions for events like tonight's forum as a service to our local communities. Our democracy is based on active participation by informed citizens, and voting is an important way to participate. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, which means we don't support or oppose parties or candidates. This rally is one way for us to make accurate and nonpartisan information available to voters. You can also contact us for explanations of the amendments, merit retention of judges, and other ballot issues. We invite women and men to attend our public events or to join us as members of the League. Please see our website for more information or to contact us. And please, remember to be an informed voter this year.
And welcome back to Rally 2012 on WSRE TV as we now begin the question and answer session with candidates for the offices in Escambia County. First up, the clerk of the circuit court race. There are two Republican candidates, and the primary winner will go on to the general election to face a write-in candidate. There are two candidates, and once again, they are seated alphabetically. The first candidate is Pam Childers. Welcome to you, Ms. Childers. Thank you. Seated next to her is Ernie Lee McGahey, and Mr. McGahey, we would also like to welcome you to Rally, sir.
Thank you.
Candidates, you will have 45 seconds to respond to your questions, and then at the conclusion of the questions and the answers, you will each have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We will begin with you tonight, Ms. Childers, with the questioning. The clerk's office serves as a check on the financial transactions of the County Commission. How would you ensure the role of checks and balances?
Well, I think first of all, you need to understand that spending taxpayers' dollars is at the discretion of the County Commission. It is their right to spend those tax dollars within their budget and the way they vote to spend it. It is the clerk's responsibility to make sure that the contracts are checked, the budget's checked, state statute has been reviewed so that when payment is made, that is an appropriate expenditure. And that's first and foremost, to make sure that what is being spent is what should be spent, because that is the taxpayers' dollars, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Ms. Childers. And the question now goes to you, Mr. McGahey. Would you like for me to repeat that question for you?
Would you please?
Yes, sir. The clerk's office serves as a check on the financial transactions of the County Commission. How would you ensure the role of checks and balances?
Well, in the first place, I would make sure that we're talking about the same question. Sometimes it's misunderstood as exactly what the question is. And of course, especially with the county commissioners, we're in that together, and we're interested in making sure that when we talk to each other, we're talking about the same subject. Because a lot of times, we really aren't clear about it. So you can't be too careful in these things, and you certainly got to respect the opinions of the others. And in between, you try to find some method whereby you can have a meeting of the minds and work in the best interest of the taxpayers. After all, that's what it's all about, the taxpayers and their supported.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGahey. The second question this evening in this race, this office keeps vital records, some of which require confidentiality. What would you do to ensure the safety of this confidential information? And we begin first with you, Mr. McGahey.
Well, first, I would make sure that we had them in the order that they should be, and there was no misunderstanding about the importance of keeping them confidential. And then I would repeat twice what the subject matters are we're talking about, and make sure that it's very clear and that we are discussing the same subject in the same tone of voice.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGahey. And the question now goes to you, Ms. Childers. This office keeps vital records, some of which require confidentiality. What would you do to protect that confidential information?
Thank you. Confidential information is very important to the citizens because they do not want their information out there in the hands of everyone else. What you have to do, especially in the technology age, is to make sure that those things that are online are legally allowed to be online, and those things that are online, those documents, whatever needs to be redacted, is done. Social Security number, those types of things that do not need to be out there to the general public. I also believe that when somebody comes in requesting information, you have to make sure that that information really can be given out to the public, because some of that information cannot.
All right, thank you, Ms. Childers. And we're up now to question number 3. With Florida's current budget restrictions, the legislature reduced statewide funding for clerks of court by $30 million. Some clerks have had to make plans to reduce staff and also hours of operation. How can clerks make wise policy decisions in this type of funding and cutback situation? And the question goes to you first, Ms. Childers.
I would say the wisest decision we can make is investing in technology. When you invest in technology, that better serves the community, citizens, 24/7 from their home computer. And they can do business until midnight. They are not restricted to office hours. However, office hours are important because not everybody has a computer. So what I hope happens is that the clerk's office, along with their association and the state legislatures, find a way to fund our court system, clerk system properly.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. McGahey. With Florida's current budget restrictions, the legislature reduced statewide funding for clerks of court by $30 million. Some clerks have had to make plans to reduce staff and also their hours of operation. How can clerks now make wise policy decisions in this type of funding and cutback situation?
Well, as the expression goes, you cut the cloth to fit the pattern. You make sure you don't spend money that you don't have, because that can get you in a lot of trouble. Now, what you do is you have priorities. But you can, I don't care who you are, you can, for a while, you can make do with what you got, and you need to do that, and there's certain things that you can put off later on to be addressed, and that's what you got to do. And it comes with a common sense of the responsibilities that you have within the department.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGahey. And if you've just joined us now, you are watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV, and we are up to question number 4 for the candidates for Clerk of the Court. How can advances in modern technology assist the operation of the clerk's office? And the question goes to you first, Mr. McGahey.
Well, basically, it affords you a 24-hour operation, so to speak. In other words, the attorneys and the others that have reason to know, they of course can ask for that information to get it any time within a 24-hour period, and then get it all weekend long. And by accommodating them in that way, that utilizes and makes sure that everybody has a chance to address it in a timely manner. And timely manners are so important and legal because you have to do things within a certain legality time. If you don't do that, then you of course is out of court.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Ms. Childers. Would you like for me to repeat it for you?
No, that's okay. Thank you. Modern technology is vital to bring Escambia County Clerk's Office into the 21st century. As of now, you're mired with 1980s technology, and you're transferring paper files instead of transferring electronic files. This is an impact on the budget when you're moving paper around, when you can be doing things much more efficiently. And if we can get all of Escambia County on a platform to share information electronically, it'll cut our budget and it'll make us more efficient. And it's just vital that we get e-filing on. There was a 2009 mandate. Escambia County is very behind.
All right, thank you, Ms. Childers. And now we're up to the 5th and final question for the Clerk of the Circuit Court race in Escambia County. And that question will go to you first, Ms. Childers. The office of the Clerk of the Court has strictly administrative responsibilities in serving the general public. In view of this, please comment on whether you believe this position should be nonpartisan.
I do believe it should be nonpartisan. However, it is not just ministerial. You have to remember that in Escambia County, the clerk's office and the comptroller's office was combined. So you need someone with the credentials. It doesn't mean they have to be a Republican or a Democrat, but you definitely need to elect someone with the credentials that will be your chief financial officer and auditor of taxpayers' dollars, because that's the most important role for our clerk today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. McGahey, your thoughts on whether this position should be nonpartisan, sir?
Yes, I believe it should be, and especially the fact that what you need to do in all of these things is you need to have checks and balances, and they don't come by accident. You need to say, let's take a look at this and see if there's some kind of middle ground that we can agree on in the best interest of taxpayers. Now, if it's not, then we have to sort of go loggerheads, so to speak, and invest it with the judges or otherwise. But if you don't do that, then you're going to end up something that's very hard to enforce, and eventually you're probably going to have to do away with it. That's what usually happens when you don't touch all those different areas you have to.
All right, thank you. And that concludes the question and answer session for the Clerk of the Circuit Court race. Each of our candidates will now have 45 seconds to make a closing statement. We began with Ms. Childers in the question, so we are going to now begin with Mr. McGahey for the closing statement. And sir, you have 45 seconds.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure and my honor to have served in Escambia County for a number of years. And I have always found it to be in the best interest of taxpayers if, in fact, you stop and listen to them along the way. But now, also, you got to make sure that you follow the law. Once you have the law that applies to one group and don't apply to another group or another individual, then you're asking for trouble. And that's all most people are asking for. So if you know what you're doing and you follow the law, and everybody has to follow the same law, and you don't have pets, so to speak, and you let them deviate from the law, then everybody's going to be much happier. And basically, that's my opinion.
Thank you. That's your 45 seconds. Thank you so much. And Ms. Childers, now your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to WSRE and also to the League of Women Voters for this candidate forum. This allows the information to get out to the voters, and I appreciate that. I am Pam Childers, a Republican candidate for Clerk of the Circuit Court, and I would appreciate your vote on August the 14th. It's time for a change. We've got someone that has been in office for over 55 years when Dwight Eisenhower was president, and it's time to stop the double dipping. It's time to hire someone with the credentials that's going to lead the office and work every day. I would appreciate your vote on August the 14th. Thank you. I'm Pam Childers.
All right, thank you, candidates, very much.
All right, moving on now to the race for Escambia County Sheriff. There are 2 Republican candidates, and the winner will face a write-in candidate in the general election. It's time now to meet the candidates. Moving alphabetically, the first candidate is David Morgan of Pensacola. Welcome, Mr. Morgan. And seated next to him is the second candidate in this race, and he is John Russell Powell, also of Pensacola. Welcome, Mr. Powell. You will each have 45 seconds. It's to answer our questions, and these questions were prepared by the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters. Let's get on now to the question and answer session. First question. Overall, our local crime rate has decreased, but the county's homicide rate has shown a marked increase this year. What steps are needed, in your opinion, to address this serious problem? And Mr. Morgan, you get this question first.
Actually, our homicide rate is down this year. We had a spike in homicide in 2010. It dropped in 2011, and thank goodness it's dropping in 2012. We're very proud to say that we have a clearance rate also with our homicide division that's probably one of those that the nation admires, because we have over 80% homicide clearance rate in Escambia County. Issues of crime in Escambia County have always been there. Our highest periods of crime were in the early 90s, but I'm also proud to tell you that as the Sheriff of Escambia County, we've been addressing those issues. We formed a TAC team, which goes to high crime areas. We do focused patrols. We've also transitioned to a new system called intelligence-led policing, where we look at our crime stats every 30 days and reevaluate every quarter.
All right, thank you very much. And to you, Mr. Powell, what steps are needed, in your opinion, to address the homicide problem in Escambia County?
Well, once again, the crime rate is actually up, as reported by FDLE, by 8% in 2011. And in order to address any crime rate, we need to put as many personnel on patrol working. Visibility is extremely important. And also make sure that we have adequate personnel assigned to investigations to clear the crimes that do occur that are forwarded for investigation. Right now, there's only a 20.1% clearance rate with the Escambia County Sheriff's Office when you compare that with the Pensacola Police Department, who has a 50% clearance rate. So we need to make sure we put adequate personnel on patrol and make sure that they're out there, they're visible, working the neighborhoods, and also contacting the businesses and ensuring the public that law enforcement is out there to address their needs.
All right, thank you very much. And we have a request for a rebuttal from Mr. Morgan. 30 seconds, sir.
It's important that the community understand that clearance rates are not tied with the overall crime rate. The crime rate in Pensacola is up to 18%, and they have 2.5 officers per thousand when Escambia County has 1.3. They have almost twice the number of officers. And our clearance rate at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office is approximately 24%, which is the average for the state of Florida.
All right, thank you. Moving now to our second question. 13 states, including Mississippi and North Carolina, have decriminalized the possession of small amounts of marijuana for personal use. What do you think is the most effective way to deal with this issue in Florida? And Mr. Powell, you get that question first.
I don't think that decriminalization is the answer to that, because once we open the door, it will lead to decriminalizing additional drugs and cause problems. I think that, once again, strong presence of law enforcement, making sure that the laws that's on the books currently are adequately enforced, strong narcotics investigations, and making sure that we inform our kids through education of the harms of using narcotics, not just marijuana, but any narcotic, and make sure that we have good communication between our school district, the family unit, and also law enforcement.
All right, thank you. That same question now to Mr. Morgan. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, thank you. Decriminalization is a euphemism for legalization, and so the community needs to understand that. I will also tell you that laws on the books do not ever prevent any crime. It's the individual, of course, that commits the crime, whether it's a homicide or the use of illegal drugs. We believe the focus should be back on the family, education through beginning at the family unit, through the schools and through our churches, and again, a presence of law enforcement to assist in teaching the debilitation that drugs brings to every community and especially to a family. However, we're working the wrong end of the problem with enforcement. We have a lot of laws on the books now about drugs, and it hasn't stopped anyone from using drugs. So again, it's an issue that needs to be handled by society, and especially in our homes with our children.
All right, thank you. And moving on now to question number 3. It'll go to Mr. Morgan first. Recent flooding at the jail resulted in the release of some non-violent inmates along with bond reductions for others. In a normal setting, can you suggest a less costly alternative to incarceration to deal with such offenders?
Well, we have a very active program which is not operated by the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. It's called a pretrial release program. We also have a county work camp which is operated by the county administrator and the Board of County Commissioners. And those inmates that meet the criteria for transition to our work camp are sent to those areas. Those that are incarcerated in the Escambia County Jail are there because they have proven to be a harm to themselves or a harm to society. And so, yes, we work every day with the county and with the court system especially. The court system, is important to understand, along with the state attorney's office, made the determination on each and every one of those cases for bond reduction and early release of inmates. The Escambia County Sheriff did not make that determination.
All right, thank you. And the question to you, Mr. Powell, can you suggest a less costly alternative to incarceration for nonviolent offenders?
Absolutely. Expanding the use of Camp 5 would be a great alternative. Also, any type of work release program that can be started or expanded in the county, and also use a notice to appears as opposed to actual physical arrest on nonviolent crimes and misdemeanors, taking somebody into custody and booking them into the Escambia County Jail, working hand in hand with the judicial system to make sure that the laws that are being enforced and that are actually enacted through ordinances or through the state laws, that we review that and make sure that adequate bonding amounts are set, so it makes it easier for people, if in fact they are taken into custody, that we can get them out of custody and get them back into the environment so they can work and go back to being a productive part of the society.
All right, thank you. We're now up to question number 4, and just a reminder that we are posing these questions to our candidates for Sheriff of Escambia County here on Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. Question number 4, can you suggest any programs that you would support to reintegrate former inmates or former incarcerated individuals back into the community? And Mr. Powell, that question first to you.
Absolutely. I think that education is a strong part. Working with the people who are incarcerated that have been in custody for a while, getting them integrated back into society, working with not-for-profit organizations such as our churches in the area, also working with the educational system for Escambia County, making sure that people are adequately trained so they have a job skill when they come back out into the community. So once again, they can be productive and help society and also help themselves so they can get basically back on their feet. We don't need to just throw them away simply because they made a mistake in their life. We need to make sure that we try to support them, that we're out there, that we try to help them, once again, through counseling, through education programs, and making sure that they have a chance to rehabilitate and become active once again.
All right, thank you. And now that question to Mr. Morgan, can you suggest any programs that you would support to reintegrate former incarcerated individuals back into the community?
Actually, we have some very robust programs at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office through some of our local churches. Pathways for Change is another organization that is a religious-based organization. A lot of folks don't know that Waterfront Mission also does that. And while our inmates are incarcerated, we offer them a GED program. We offer them also skill sets where they can learn welding, electrical work, and plumbing. So the offers of rehabilitation are there. The problem that we face with inmates that are being incarcerated, unfortunately, is a culture that has been developed, a culture of crime. And so while we can extend the offer and hand of friendship, if you will, education and reintegration to our society, it's incumbent upon the individual to accept that hand. So we have a sufficient number of programs presently in place.
All right, thank you very much. We're now up to our 5th and final question for these candidates for sheriff. Please give your opinion of the movement to privatize jails and prisons in the state. And Mr. Morgan, to you first.
I've stated publicly many times I'm adamantly opposed to privatization. Businesses are in business to make a profit. And I can tell you that it's hard to find, and I am unaware of any in the United States that, again, a profit business that does incarceration that actually turns a profit, who doesn't end up being a burden on the community that privatized. People need to understand something. There are certain rights that a government has by virtue of our Constitution. We can't abrogate those rights of taking someone's citizenship from them, if you will, and their personal freedom. And so it's incumbent upon us as citizens to be in charge of those programs, again, do the rehabilitative process, reintegrate them into society. That's not something for a private business to take on.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Powell, your thoughts now on the move to privatize jails and prisons in the state.
Once again, opposed to it. I think that the companies come in and trying to make money. They will basically do a low bid initially to get started. Then they raise the cost of their product that they're serving, which is running either the jail or the prison. I'll give an example. Bay County, Sheriff Frank McKeithen took the jail back over from a private corporation and actually saved the taxpayers $2 million a year when he took over the jail. So the jail needs to be run by the government, by the sheriff's office, or by the local authority that has chosen or been selected to run the jail. It doesn't need to be private. It's just a way for an organization to come in and take advantage of the citizens of the county and make money, basically to line their own pockets. So I'm absolutely opposed to it. Would not advocate it at all.
All right, thank you. That ends our question-answer session. And now to each of our candidates, 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. And we will begin our closing this time with you, Mr. Powell.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I certainly do appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. Thank you to WSRE and also to the League of Women Voters for having us here. I am a native of Escambia County. I'm also a 27-year law enforcement veteran and a certified professional law enforcement officer. I'm a husband and a loving father of 3 beautiful children. I would ask for your consideration for the upcoming election on August the 14th and for your vote. We need to make changes in Escambia County. We need to make it safe again. We need to get crime under control. But most of all, we need to make sure that we make Escambia County a vibrant place where the economy can thrive and citizens can prosper, and it's a safe place to raise our families and also to enjoy the beautiful amenities that Escambia County has to offer. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Powell. And now to you, Mr. Morgan, 45 seconds for your closing.
I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan. I've been honored to be your sheriff for the last 3.5 years, and I ask for your support and your vote to re-elect Sheriff David Morgan on August the 14th. Honored to be a member of this society, have lived in Escambia County now for 20 years with my wife and I. We're homeowners, taxpayers, and business owners. And I think probably what I could point out to you, I think was probably the most vote of confidence that I've received for my re-election is the numerous endorsements that we received from this community, from the Police Benevolent Association, the Escambia County Firefighters Union, the Pensacola Realtors Association, the Escambia County Gun Club, the National Rifle Association, the Florida Sportsman Association. Again, just a few of the endorsements that we received for this administration. I'm proud and honored to be a member of this community. I'm excited about Escambia County, and please vote on August the 14th for Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan.
All right, thank you to our candidates for Sheriff of Escambia County.
And the next set of questions will be posed to candidates for the office of County Commissioner in Escambia County District 1. There are 2 Republican candidates. The candidate who wins the primary will go on in November to face a no-party affiliation candidate. Seated alphabetically this evening, the first candidate to be introduced to you tonight is Jesse Casey. And the second candidate who will receive questions tonight is Wilson Robertson. And gentlemen, we welcome you to Rally 2012, and we're so glad that you were able to join us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
We want to remind you that the questions have been provided this evening by the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters. We are going to begin the questions for the Escambia County Commission District 1 with Mr. Casey. And Mr. Casey, you will have 45 seconds to respond. Question number 1. Our barrier islands, Pensacola Beach and Perdido Key, have been determined to be critically eroded shorelines. The cost of beach renourishment has been estimated at $35 million every 10 years. How would you propose to raise local funds to sustain coastal development? And again, that question to you first, Mr. Casey, 45 seconds.
Okay. I think the BP is going to define money that's going to come in. That's going to contribute a lot to it, and only being in the county commissioner for a little over 2.5 years, some of the information I haven't been privy to,
But I think we got to reach out. We got to bring jobs in, and from other sources out of town, and the spending that we're doing, we should start spending some of our funds local, and we'll have money to put back into refurbishing our beaches and stuff.
All right, thank you. And now the question goes to you, Mr. Robertson. Would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
That's
okay.
First of all, we are going to have $100 million or so, more, in fact more than that, for environmental restoration. A lot of that from the BP fine money. A lot of that can be used for beach restoration and renourishment. We're also going to always be renourishing our beaches. We've been doing that. I've been doing the county commission work for years and years, and we'll find the money. We can get grants. There's always a possibility that you do have to do a special assessment for those people that benefit from the restoration, just like you would anything. So there's always going to be the money, and every 10 years or so, in fact, we're fixing to do major beach renourishment right now on Perdita Key. So there's ways to find the money, and we have local option sales tax that we can use.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robertson. And both of you gentlemen did mention the BP settlement money. The next question reads that Escambia County is expected to get more than $100 million from the BP settlement. What are your priorities for this money? And this time we will start with you, Mr. Robertson.
We do not have priorities at this time. Now, a third of that money, there's going to be hundreds of millions, by the way, a third of it is going to be for beach renourishment and ecosystem renourishment or restoration. And then there's going to be another third pot of that money that the federal and the state will be able to administer. And then there's a third that the county commission will be able to have the final decision, and that's going to be economic development recovery. And we're going to form a committee of probably some commissioners and mayor, city council, and some citizens at large. We discussed this at a board meeting the other day. Senator Nelson said if they settle out of court, we could have this money sooner than later. And that's why my experience is so necessary. We're going to have 2 brand new commissioners. We don't need a third one.
Thank you, sir. And now to you, Mr. Casey. The question, Escambia County is expected to get more than $100 million from the BP settlement. What would your priorities be in spending this money?
Well, I think my priorities would be to, since I work for the people of District 1, I would be representing those people in District 1 and working together with the other county commissioners to take care of all of the needs in all the districts. But, you know, I would not exclude the voices of the community, because that's who the county commissioner works for, and sometimes we forget that.
All right, thank you, sir. The next question, NAS Pensacola is facing development pressure that threatens to undermine its aviation mission. Do you support downzoning other development restrictions to buffer the base to protect the industry sector? And would you please explain your answer? And the question goes to you first, Mr. Casey.
Not real familiar with this particular question here. I'm Civil Air Patrol First Lieutenant, and so I believe in the aviation and naval that's here in town. It brings a lot of funds here. I think we should bring them together and not exclude it.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question goes to you now, Mr. Robertson. Would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
Okay. We've been down zoning all around our military bases for years, probably 25 or 30 years, ever since zoning came into our county. And we certainly continue to do that, and we look very closely at anyone that asks to have rezoning that upscales the zoning in those aviation areas, because we don't want a lot of development around our military installations is going to cause them to be discouraged. In fact, we always check with the military bases before we enter into a lot of those zoning issues.
All right, thank you, sir. And if you're just joining us, this is Rally 2012, and we are currently posing questions that have been provided to us by the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters to the candidates for County Commission District 1. And we are up to question number 4. The Civic Center runs a budget deficit. What do you believe should be done with or about this facility? And the question goes to you first, Mr. Robertson.
Well, we continually struggle with that. Now, it does not come out of the losses do not come out of the General Revenue Fund. We fund that with up to the 3rd cent of the local bed tax. And we have reduced those losses from almost $2 million a year now down to about 1.2. We had a consultant give us some ideas of what to do. We run it for the citizens, and it's always going to lose money. They say civic centers never make money. UWF is considering putting something similar, and we may finally get out of the civic center business, which would be great, and we could cooperate with UWF and all use their center out there if they build one, a 10,000-seat center. But yes, we're always going to lose money when we run the civic center.
All right, Mr. Robertson, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Casey. Would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
No.
All right.
I think early part of the year, the subject came up was reach out to the community and see if there was anybody interested in the Civic Center, and the question went out. And oh, by the way, you know, hey, we got a $10 million price tag on it. You know, first of all, I think we should get out of the Civic Center business. It has no parking or very limited parking, and you know, we shouldn't put a price tag on it. We should put it out there. Hey, how much we give? $6 million, $5 million, million. Bring in some jobs, create the jobs, and then it creates tax revenue.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Robertson, you did raise your hand and have indicated that you would like to rebut Mr. Casey's answer.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify one thing. We did not put a price tag. We could not get any takers. We sent an RFP out. In fact, I stated at one of our board meetings we'd give it away almost if somebody would run it. So we had no takers at any price.
All right, thank you, sir. And now the fifth and final question to the candidates for County Commission District 1 in Escambia County. Please comment on whether you would support a dedicated funding source for the public library system through a municipal services tax unit. The question goes to you first, Mr. Casey.
I'm not for raising any taxes, and I say that loud and clear. What I would do, being a representative of District 1, I would take it to the people of District 1 and let them vote on it. Let their voice be heard. That's what the politicians need to do. They work for them, and they need to answer to them. They sign their check.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robertson. Would you please comment on whether you would support a dedicated funding source for the public library system through a municipal services tax unit?
I've stated loud and clear I will not support any new taxes in this economy. We are funding the library out of the general revenue funds, and we can do that. We're doing it again this year. What we need to do is get some of the Civic Center losses out of the way so that money can help us there. And then we're funding the bus system, the mass transit, out of general revenue. The city needs to come back on and help us. That would help toward the library. We just need to continue to spend. We've cut $50 million out of our budget in the last 4 years. 6.9 mils, lowest in the 1970s. So we just need to keep managing efficiently, and we can fund the library out of the general revenue.
All right, thank you, sir. And that concludes the question and answer session for County Commission District 1. And now each of the candidates will have 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. We began the questioning with you, Mr. Casey, so we are going to begin the closing statements with you, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you. Just want to state that I've been a successful small business person in this county since 1966. I've served 2 terms in District 5, 1 term in District 1. I'm finishing up. I'd like another term. It's important now, for my experience with the hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to be coming in here from the BP oil spill. And so now I think more than ever my experience is needed. I've been endorsed by the Pensacola News Journal, the PBA, the local mass transit union, the Pensacola News Journal, as I said, and I've got a lot of endorsements, and I feel like those folks interviewed us and saw the best candidate, and we've got the lowest property taxes in history since 1970, so I'd appreciate your vote for Wilson Robertson.
All right, thank you. And now to you, Mr. Casey, for your closing statement. You have 45 seconds, sir.
Hello, I'm Jesse Casey, and I'm seeking your vote for District 1 County Commissioner between now and August 14th. My heart and soul has been dedicated to Escambia County for over 55 years. And I've seen jobs and opportunities leave the district because of closed door, good old boy politics. And your vote for me will open the door by bringing back jobs to Escambia County and our community. For more information, please visit www.jessecasey.net. And I look forward to your vote.
All right, thank you. And those were the candidates for County Commission District 1 in Escambia County.
And you are watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. Much more to come. Right now, a look at the races still ahead.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Escambia County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Escambia County Supervisor of Elections office. You can write, phone, fax, email, or log on to their website. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, August 4th through Saturday, August 11th at the 4 locations listed on your screen. Early voting times on August 4th and 5th are 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. From August 6th until the 11th, early voting times are 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. On the day of the primary election, Tuesday, August 14th, voting takes place at your polling location from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered. To verify your precinct, log on to escambiavotes.com. Make sure you take along a photo and signature ID with you.
Welcome back to Rally 2012. We are moving right along tonight, and up next, the race for County Commissioner District 3. There are 3 Democratic candidates. The winner of the primary will face a Republican, a write-in candidate, and 2 candidates with no party affiliation in the general election. The Democratic candidates with us tonight are Luman May. Welcome, Mr. May. He's seated in the first chair. Moving along in alphabetical order, the second candidate is Clinton Earl Powell Sr. Welcome, Mr. Powell. And the third candidate with us tonight is Annie Thomas Walker. Welcome, Ms. Walker. All right, we have questions now, and we remind you they are from the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters. We'll go now to question number 1, and Mr. May, you'll get that first. Almost half of the residential properties in Escambia County pay no property tax because of depressed values, blighted neighborhoods, and urban flight. In what ways do you believe the Commission can stabilize property values and provide for economic development in our urban core?
Well, I think some of the things that we must do in our urban core is to establish neighborhood guidelines. And because you have a low home ownership, that we must make sure that landowners adhere to that neighborhood guidelines. Secondly, we must make sure that our public buildings do not create more blight in our neighborhoods. Particularly in District 3, we have 6 or 7 abandoned schools. I think the county commissioners must work with the Escambia County School District to do new urban revitalization and use these vacant buildings to spur private investments into our neighborhoods, to make sure that we're using them as incubators, that we're using them as incentives to bring in the public dollars into our community. And secondly, code enforcement is very important. It's very important that we make sure that our residents keep their property up and keep it clean. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Powell, now that question to you. In what ways do you think the Commission can stabilize property values and provide for economic development in our urban core?
Well, first of all, I thank you for asking me that question, but first of all, we need to come together as a community first, because anybody that know about District 3 is the people. And in that pitch of people, I agree with what Luma May said about the schooling and about the housings are being developed. They also have some habitat houses that have been built in there, but they need to take these schools and do something positive with it. And that positive is start something like a trade school for the high school children to start a trade. And I believe if the school system would start a trade like electric course in school, and then not only that, just come together as a community.
All right, thank you. And now this question to Ms. Walker. In what ways do you think the Commission can stabilize property values and provide for economic development in the urban core?
I think this will have to go back to our neighborhoods. We need to empower the people in the neighborhood to be a little more aggressive in taking care of the properties in District 3. We have a lot of blighted areas in District 3 that needs attention, and sometimes we just go on and forget about them. But I think if the commissioners put a little more enforcement on it and have the code enforcement to come in and get rid of some of these blighted areas and take care of properties like we should.
All All right, thank you. Up to question number 2 now. The question is, according to recent publicity, one group suggests the Civic Center be torn down and replaced with a 10,000-seat arena at UWF. What are your thoughts on this idea? And Mr. Powell, you first.
Well, as earlier, I don't want to reboot the kind of commission I went before. That time they did had a bid for the Civic Center, and someone wanted to take that over and bring entertainment to the community, which is where it's located. Will be not only be an access to District 3, but also 1 and 2. But the reason why the person didn't take it because there was no parking space. And in order to move it from way out to the University of West Florida, that would hinder the growth in District 3, 1, 2, and 4.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Walker, now that question to you. What are your thoughts on the idea of tearing down the Civic Center and having it replaced with a 10,000-seat arena at UWF?
I think in moving the Civic Center is not just the solution that we need. If more entertainment would come into the area, and that doesn't mean that if it's moved to the university property, that more entertainment would come in to substantiate what go on there. But just moving it from one area to the other, and we're not stable where we are, I think that the county would be actually making a mistake.
All right, and now that question to you, Mr. May. Do you need me to repeat it?
Please.
All right. According to recent publicity, one group suggests that the Civic Center in Pensacola be torn down and replaced with a 10,000-seat arena at UWF. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts, and I understand that recently we finished and did our debt service to the Civic Center with BP dollars, and now it's paid for. Certainly, it's an old building that has been aged, and it will need some tender loving care in terms of the facilities and on the capital side. But I think that the Civic Center must move in a direction to be able to pay for itself. I don't recommend that we would replace it until we have something to replace it with. And once there is a center or a convention center built at UWF, I think that we have to look at the opportunity of utilizing that property for the best use for the citizens. And I'll always support the public use of public buildings by our citizens.
All right, we're up to question number 3 now, and it will go first to Ms. Walker. The question is, newly formed Business Enterprises Incorporated at UWF is proposing a $50 million, or proposing that $50 million from the BP settlement be used to expand cultural heritage tourism downtown through bed and breakfast, boutique hotels, and a revamped historic district. What is your assessment of this proposal?
I will work for more to be done about our enterprise zones. We find out in our enterprise zones sometimes we have places that need to be cleaned up. And because of that, we are having a lot of crime in those areas. We're having ill health, juvenile delinquency, and until more is done in the enterprises zones, I think we would still have problems other than expanding it. We need to expand it.
All right, thank you. And Mr. May, to you, what are your thoughts? What is your assessment of UWF's proposal to use $50 million of the BP settlement to expand cultural heritage tourism downtown?
Well, I don't think that that's a question that we can fairly answer without bringing all of the stakeholders to the table to discuss exactly what we will do with the BP funds. Certainly, Senator Nelson said it best, that the BP funds are intended to restore our economy and restore our environment. So we should look at what's the best use of those dollars for future generations and not just for us. And the type of things that will do to boost our economy, that will provide jobs 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years down the road, to provide jobs for our children and economic opportunity, and at the same time protecting and restoring our environment.
All right, that question now to Mr. Powell. Again, your assessment of the proposal from UWF to use $50 million of the BP settlement money to enhance or expand cultural heritage tourism in the historic district downtown.
Well, we have been focused on tourists for Pensacola for quite some time, but we're neglecting the drainage and the contaminated water that we have in Pensacola. You notice that we are the #1 in the United States with contaminated water because of old pipes since 1957. First of all, we need to do that. We need to correct the drainage system. You know that we had a little water damage about a couple months ago, drained and flooded out a lot of elders and senior citizen homes. We need to start focusing on the health of our future children and the senior citizen today. And most of all, that's what the main thing we need to take. Before we go to cultures, we need to find out, make sure that the water is not contaminated where we can drink it.
All right, thank you very much. If you're just joining us, you're watching Rally 2012 here on WSRE TV, and we are posing questions to our candidates for Escambia County Commission District 3. We're up to question number 4 now, and that question is, recently the citizens of Escambia County demonstrated the need, or that they need and want, continuing library services. In order to ensure annual funding of the West Florida library system, would you support a dedicated funding source, such as a municipal services tax unit? And that question first to you. Back to you, Mr. May.
At this time, I don't think that I could support any tax increase. I mean, obviously, our MSTUs, we have 2 dedicated on the beach for the police and the fire. But what I would recommend is that we would look at the budget to see how we can better allocate dollars to fund our library system, because education is prominent and it's premier in our community. And what we should do is look at collaborations. Many times, particularly in District 3, we see that our libraries and our media centers and our schools are not used on weekends or not used in the afternoon. So we should understand that we should be working together in collaboration with our district to have best use of our tax dollars. So I certainly think that the library is important, but I don't think that I would certainly recommend or support at this time a tax increase.
All right, thank you. And that question now to Mr. Powell. Would you support a dedicated funding source, such as a municipal services tax unit for the West Florida library system?
No, I would not support a tax. But I heard the other commission earlier was talking about they are taking money out of general funds. Well, I've been an employee for 21 System. That's the problem. They're taking money out of general funds instead of construction. The money is there, but what you need to do is consolidate, because you only have 1 jail, and you need to, instead of having 2 chiefs, you should have 1 chief. And then not only that, the top is heavy. You know, they have a theory in their mind that in order to have a solid foundation, you need to start from the top to the bottom, but that's not working. In order to have a solid foundation, you need to start from the bottom to the top.
All right, thank you. And that same question now to you, Ms. Walker. Do you need me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're talking about support or ensuring annual funding for the West Florida library system. Would you support dedicated funding, a source such as a municipal services tax unit, MSTU, for the library system?
Certainly, I would support a funding source, but not the tax unit. We need to look at different ways in which we can fund the library and other places in the city, and maybe when the BP money come in, that might be an entity to come in and fund some of these things that nobody know what they're going to do with it right now, but we could put that on the table and work with it.
All right, thank you very much. Up to our final question now for our candidates for Escambia County District 3. Mr. Powell, it will go to you first. While a portion of Escambia residents depend on public transportation for many reasons, some complain about the costs and availability of routes. Please give your assessment of the transit system, Mr. Powell.
Well, being an avid of transit system myself, I still ride it, but as a youth, I took care of it because I was blessed to have it when I'm living in Lincoln Park, that it stopped right at my front door. So that was a blessing for me. That's very rare. But you have to think about some of the people's, the transportation now, it need to go a little further, because where the bus route is now, they drop the people's off like 3 miles from their job, and they still have to walk in the rain and shelter. So that need to be looked at to bring them closer to their job as transportation, because it's very needed in Pensacola, Florida.
All right, thank you. And now to Ms. Walker, what is your assessment of the public transit system in Escambia County?
Surely we need the public transit system in Escambia County. As you know, Escambia County is beginning to get more of an elderly population, and in order to serve the people, we need that transportation because of their not being able to drive sometimes. So they need a way to get about and keep their livelihood going in the direction they need to do. So public transportation is one way of letting them know you don't have to stay home, you got a way to get there. And I do support public transportation.
All right, thank you very much. And now to you, finally, Mr. May, with this question. Please give us your assessment of the Escambia County transit system.
Well, I think that transportation is very important to economic development. I think the direct correlation to successful economic development will be a good educational system and a good transportation system. I would propose to my fellow commissioners that we look to increase a dedicated funding source and take the ECAT budget out of our general fund where we can fund our library, where we can make sure that we have enough money there, and possibly look at increasing a gas tax. And because 64% of people who buy gas are people traveling for tourism or people that don't live in our area. So I certainly believe that if we're going to be at the forefront of economic development and creating jobs, that when employers and industry look to Pensacola, that they want to see that we have a successful mass transportation.
All right, thank you very much. And that concludes our question and answer session for our candidates for Escambia County District 3. And now each of you, our candidates, has 45 seconds for a closing statement, and we will begin the closings with Ms. Walker.
First of all, I would like to thank WSRE for inviting me to take part in this dialogue. I would like to give thanks to my husband and my children who is supporting me in this effort, and most of all, give thanks to my Heavenly Father. My hope, and I want to try and accomplish a cleaner environment for our community. I would like to have incentives to get jobs and industry in place where our young people can stay home and have somewhere to work and live. I have been a county in the county for a number of years. I have served on different county projects, such as the Neighborhood Advisory Council and the Neighborhood Improvement Council. So I just want to be here to work for Escambia County. So please cast your vote for Ann Walker.
All right, thank you. And Mr. May, next to you for your closing statement.
Again, I'm running for County Commissioner for District 3 because of the young people that I've coached, for the young people that I've worked with that want to return home, but there's not jobs and opportunities for them. I'm running for that single mom who has 3 kids that are afraid to go outside because their neighborhoods are not safe. I'm running for the young person that graduated from University of West Florida but can't find a job in the place where they grew up and they lived. So that's why I'm running for District 3. But District 3 is so critical to the success of this entire county. But we need a commissioner that can work with the other 4 commissioners to get something done, to sit at the table and dialogue and understand that we're all in this together. And if District 3 is successful, the entire county can be successful. Again, my name is Lumen May, and I want to be your next commissioner for District 3. Please vote August 14th for me.
All right, thanks. And now 45 seconds for a closing statement from Mr. Powell.
Thank you very much, WSRE, for letting me come and spend this time with you all. I consider you all as my family because Pensacola is my family. And I have 21 years experience with the Escambia County system. I have worked for administration and environment, diversity positions. I believe in my heart bringing the power back to the people is building success from the bottom to the top. That is very important. I work all 5 districts, so I know exactly what the citizens and the people need because I deal with them every day for the last 21 years. So it's important to me that you listen to the people because without the people, then there's no power with county commission. It's not about county commissioners. It's not about the individual. It's about the people. So vote for Clinton Powell, your county commissioner.
All right, thanks, Mr. Powell, and thanks to all of our candidates for Escambia County Commission District 3.
And you're watching Rally 2012 on WSRE TV. This is an opportunity for you to meet the candidates in the upcoming primary election as they discuss issues that are of concern to the voters. And we would like to thank also the League of Women Voters for helping us in this effort here tonight.
Exactly. The League of Women Voters, Pensacola Bay Area, and also for our Okaloosa races and our state races, the Okaloosa chapter as well.
Well, the next race is a crowded field as 5 candidates are vying for the position of County Commissioner for District 5. And the candidate with the highest number of votes in the primary will go on to face a no-party affiliation candidate in November. Let's get to it. Let's meet those candidates. And first tonight, we are going to start, as we have been all evening, with the first candidate alphabetically. That is Sam Archer. Welcome, Mr. Archer. And seated next to him is Glenn Austin. Welcome, Mr. Austin.
Thank you.
The third candidate this evening in this race is Stephen Berry. We say welcome to you, Mr. Berry.
And moving along alphabetically to candidate number 4, Pat Burkett. Welcome to you. And next to Ms. Burkett is Jim Taylor. Welcome to you, sir.
And now Sandra and I are going to alternate posing questions to these candidates tonight. The questions again provided to us by the League of Women Voters of Pensacola Bay Area. So let's get to it. And we're going to start with you, Mr. Archer, with question number 1. With development pressures on agricultural land, many farmers are tempted or forced to sell their farms for residential subdivisions and commercial development. Do you support family farm protection through transfer sales of development rights and conservation and agricultural easements?
Well, our farmers, first of all, thanks Drexel and for the ladies for having us down. The farmers in District 5, it's a different situation out there than the rest of the county. And we have to take care of our farmers and the drainage and the other issues there. So whatever we can do in that area to help our farm families and help them to prosper, we certainly want to do that. So anything that we can do to help the group out there, we're going to be involved in that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Archer. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Austin. Would you like for me to repeat the question for you?
Yes, please.
All right. With development pressures on agricultural lands, many farmers are tempted or perhaps forced to sell their farms for residential subdivisions and commercial development. Do you support family farm protection through transfer sales of development rights and conservation and agricultural easements?
I do support that. The farmers that we have in the North End are absolutely vital to the economy here in this county. There's a lot of farmers up there that are struggling to make ends meet every single day, and the county needs to support them in every way possible. And I know the pressures are on them to make ends meet. I mean, goodness, when you come up and you have X amount of dollars at the end of the year and you're wondering, can I make it another time? But I could sell out here and it's a little bit easier. I think the county commission should make every step possible to make it easier for the farmer to stay in the farming business if that's what they choose to do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Austin. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Barry, and would you like for me to repeat that for you, sir?
No, ma'am, that's fine. Okay. Thank you. Now, I worked pretty closely on the transfer of development rights issue with the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan and our Land Development Code drafting while being on the Planning and Zoning Board. I do support the transfer of development rights being a part of that plan. It gives landowners the opportunity to forego a future entitlement to keep a current benefit, being they get to keep the ability to own their farm, they get to keep the ability to farm it, and they also get a capital influx to enable them to be able to keep their mortgage, pay their taxes, etc. And all they've given up is the intangible future benefit of development. And it's something I think that's a key tool, especially until the economy turns around and you have more successful situations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Berry. And now the question goes next to candidate Ms. Burkett. And would you like for me to repeat the question for you, ma'am? All right.
I too, I agree completely that we need to support our farmers in the North End. That is their livelihood. That's what they're about. Tax incentives are absolutely necessary to keep them going. I think we should do everything we can to support them, encourage them, and just, you know, do anything we can to help them.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burkett. And Mr. Taylor, we're talking about the farmers, and would you like for me to repeat the question for you, sir?
No, ma'am. I'm very supportive of our farmers in the North End. I worked very hard for us to try to keep the farm subsidy office in the North End that they're trying to close. I had contacted Congressman Miller's office, and he sent his aide there to some of the meetings for the farm subsidy centers. The farmers in the North End of our county are some of the hardest working people in America, and they work very hard, and they produce a number of great things up here. So whatever we can do to assist them, benefit them, because they've been the backbone of our community for many, many years and will be in the future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. And now it's on to question number 2, Sandra.
All right, thank you, Drexel. And that question will go first to Mr. Austin. The question is, recently a commissioner suggested functional consolidation of services provided by both Escambia County and the City of Pensacola. What is your opinion of consolidation of such services where feasible?
Well, you know, when you look at the consolidation question, a lot of people are worried about what happens if we start this ball going forward with consolidating Pensacola into the county. There's so much debt with Pensacola, we just can't afford it. You know, Escambia County has its own set of problems that we need to deal with to grow, and consolidation is just not in the answer to any of this. Now, if you want to look at consolidation of some of the services that the county offers in itself, that's sure, but not really taking on any debt or anything with the city. I wouldn't do that.
All right, thank you. Question next to Mr. Berry. What is your opinion of consolidation of services between the city and the county?
Well, I certainly don't support the consolidation of the municipal government of the city and Escambia County. You've got a situation where Escambia County and its taxpayers and citizens have been very prudent and are in relatively good financial shape, and you can't lay the burden on them of financial decisions that they haven't been a party to. Now, if you're just assessing cost centers across different municipal agencies where you can get a more efficient use of the taxpayer dollar, if one of the main responsibilities of a Board of County Commissioner member is to be an advocate for the taxpayer, and if you can get a more efficient use of the tax or ratepayer dollars, then I think that's worth a conversation.
All right, thank you. And now to Ms. Burkett, that question to you.
I definitely do not agree with consolidated government because the city and the county are so distinctly different, each with their own issues and their own finance issues. I know if you look at some of the bigger cities who have done this, it hasn't really been to their advantage in the long run, so I definitely think that's a bad idea.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Taylor, your opportunity for this question. We're looking for your opinion of consolidation of some functional services where feasible.
Absolutely not. I have fought against consolidation every time it's come up. This idea that in order for us to save money for the taxpayers, we have to have some form of consolidation. Some people like to use the code words functional consolidation, charter. It's all the same thing. Definitely, I don't believe the people in District 5 want it because it's going to put more power centered downtown. I don't believe that there's anything that we can do with, quote, consolidated government that we can't do with common sense government in the form of government we have right now.
All right, thank you. And finally, getting an opportunity for this question is Mr. Archer. Do you need me to repeat it, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right.
I'm not for consolidated government in any form or fashion. They are experimenting with it some right now, and the Duval County plan has not proved out to be super successful, especially for the people in the outlying areas. And to me now, it's all about the citizen in Escambia County, the citizen in District 5. And the citizen out there needs to be represented, first of all, and well represented. And under consolidated government, they're going to be footing the bill for some things that happen downtown that they're not going to really reap a benefit from it. And if you look at the other plans that have gone into consolidation, that's been the case. The rural areas suffer for it.
All right, thank you. Drexel?
All right, now we're up to question number 3, and again, you are watching Rally 2012, and we are posing questions now to the candidates for the Escambia County Commission seat District 5. I'm Drexel Gilbert along with Sandra Aberhart, and we are so glad that you have joined us this evening. Question number 3 to the candidates: should a portion of the bed tax continue to be used to cover the losses of the Civic Center's operation? And if not, what do you believe the future of the Civic Center should be? And we begin now with Mr. Berry this time.
Thank you. The first step to getting out of a hole, whether it's financial or otherwise, is to discontinue digging. You've got a situation with the Civic Center where even in the proposed budget, which you think is a good scenario, it's still showing a negative $1.2 million cash flow entity. With the opportunity to assess that situation, you're not seeing a decrease in that negative cash flow. So I think you have to take a very vital look at what some other options might be.
All right, thank you, Mr. Berry. Ms. Burkett, we're talking about the Civic Center and the losses incurred there, and whether the portion of the bed tax should continue to be used to offset those losses.
I don't think so, because as we were mentioning earlier, some of the other candidates about the UWF proposition, I think in the long run we would definitely control our losses if we didn't have the Civic Center. It's been historical that it has been in the red almost from the beginning, so I don't think we should continue that act.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Taylor, the question goes to you now, and would you like for me to repeat it for you, sir?
No, ma'am. On the Civic Center, there's a number of things we could do with the Civic Center. I don't believe that we need to continue to fund it out of the bed tax. I think we ought to find a more dedicated funding source for that if we're going to stay in the business with the Civic Center. I also think we could take a lot of the office space that's on the second floor of the Civic Center that's not being used and rent that office space out or lease it out to companies that want to come here. Recently, we had a company that came in here, was a technology company, and wanted to bring a lot of jobs into the area, but they couldn't afford a $12 or $14 million bond to build a building. If we could rent that to them for $500,000, $600,000 a year and get that business going, keep the Civic Center going until the UWF Arena come on board, it could be a benefit for everybody.
All right, thank you. Now the question goes to you, Mr. Archer, and it regards the losses at the Civic Center and whether a portion of the bed tax should continue to be used to cover those losses.
All right. Well, Drexel, I believe that the Civic Center has been a losing proposition the whole time for Escambia County. I've taken my children, my grandchildren down there. We certainly enjoy all the things that come in, especially the circus and the hockey and things like that, and it is an arena that can be used by the city. But the county needs to get out of the Civic Center business. I don't support using the bed tax. In a temporary basis, we can look at something, but I would love to see UWF come on board with the arena and take that burden off of the taxpayer in the county.
All right, and finally the question goes to you, Mr. Austin. Would you like for me to repeat that for you?
No, thank you. You know, the idea of the Civic Center obviously is to bring a lot of people from out of town in town and the people here so they benefit from some of the tax dollars that they spend when they go to the restaurants, they go to the bars, they go to other stores to eat. This is something that I think a community needs, but do we need this Civic Center with an albatross? A lot of people have labeled it as an albatross. We really need to rethink how we're going to deal with the Civic Center in the future. UWF has offered a proposal. A convention center, to me, seems more feasible besides just a Civic Center. Now, whether we still keep it there or move it to UWF, these are things I really think we need to study and how we're going to fund it without just arbitrarily cutting funding or adding a new tax. I would never add a new tax to it, though.
All right, thank you, Mr. Austin.
All right, well now up to question number 4, and it will go first to Ms. Burkett. The question is, we're seeking actually your comment on the use of a portion of BP settlement monies to pay for beach renourishment and for correcting stormwater projects or stormwater problems, as has been suggested by at least one commissioner. Ms. Burkett, your thoughts?
A portion of it would be acceptable. I would not like for them to use the entire amount just for that reason. I think the BP funding should be diversified and used in all of the areas. It is an area that needs to be worked on, obviously, but I don't believe that the entire funding should go for that.
All right, thank you. And now to Mr. Taylor, what are your thoughts on the use of a portion of the BP settlement monies to pay for beach renourishment and also to correct some stormwater problems?
I think it's fine to use a portion of it for that, but I want to make sure that District 5 also gets its fair share of that money that comes in, because a lot of people neglect to think that with all this BP thing, people in District 5 suffered also. There was some loss of employment. There was some loss of income for the people in District 5. So using a portion of it, fine. And if that frees up additional money to be used in District 5, that's okay. And if a portion of it's used also to increase tourism, I know that we get a return of about $9.9 per every dollar that we spend to improve tourism here. And that Highway 29 is our main north-south artery to I-65. So we could benefit all from some of that.
All right, thank you very much. And we are continuing right down the line, as has been our practice during this Rally 2012 program. And so now we are back to Mr. Archer, and we're talking about use of a portion of the BP settlement monies to fund beach renourishment and to correct stormwater problems.
Well, we have to work together with you know, everybody in the county. It's not all just about a single district. We have to be able to go in and work and create for the common good. I'm going to be a strong proponent, though, for District 5. I believe in listening to the people. And what I've seen in my campaign in out looking at the people face to face, is that they're not for throwing that money away. Let's look at maybe forming a committee on how we spend that. Let's not spend it quickly. Let's think it over, because we have some great hurdles in our future. Right. So I would not be for spending it all. A little beach renourishment, that's great. Let's spend some money and put it back.
Thank you. And finally, this question to Mr. Austin. Do you need me to repeat it,
no,
sir?
I sure don't. I'm good with it. The idea of this money being spent on the beach renourishment, that's fine. But I tell you, the bulk of it, in my opinion, needs to be spent on what we're going to do with the future economy here in Escambia County. You have one bad summer like we did with the oil spill. It affects everybody, not just the beach. The ripple effect is phenomenal for every small business here all the way up to Alabama. We need to use a lot of that money, in my opinion, to bring new industry here, expand the job growth we have here. These are things we really need to focus on, because we just can't put all our eggs in a basket like we have in the past with just on the beach. It needs to be spread out. We need a more stable economy so that we can all look forward to having a job.
All right, thank you, Mr. Austin. And we don't want to forget Mr. Berry. It is now your turn to weigh in. We're seeking your comments on the proposal to use a portion of BP settlement monies for beach renourishment and to correct stormwater problems.
Well, I don't think the issue is going to be a discretionary one. It's going to be legislated that a portion of those dollars are going to go for environmental restoration and for environmental protection. So that's not going to be something that's at our leisure for the spending. With the remaining amount of money, I really prefer the idea of long-term capital projects that have a multi-generational effect, projects that are potentially a revenue source, a perpetual revenue source to the county. This is an influx, potentially an influx of dollars unlike any we've seen and may very well see in the future. So it may be a one-time opportunity to build our tax base to try to account for the revenue that we're going to need going forward with dollars decreasing from Tallahassee and Washington.
All right, thank you, Drexel.
And time now for question number 5, and this one is going to be posed first to you, Mr. Taylor. How important is it to the residents of your district to have a public library within a reasonable distance, considering the public's wide use of library computers as well as the traditional services?
Well, it's very important to people in our district, because if you look at District 5, it's about half of Escambia County geographically. And we're getting opening, of the Molino School and the new libraries there. So it's very important, and it'll be used, and they look forward to having those facilities. We'd like to have more, because, again, our district is so huge, we need a few more outlets for it, and we may have to do a little more utilizing some of the school libraries too.
All right, thank you, sir. And now the question goes to Mr. Archer. Would you like for me to repeat that for you, sir?
No, ma'am, thank you. The libraries are very important. It's for a gathering place for people to go in, and it's important in District 5. We're going to see in Molina there at the new facility, and we need some way for the people in Century and the outlying areas, is something close by for them to be able to use and enjoy. I wouldn't be in favor of funding that through any extra taxes or anything on that on the public, but we ought to be able to have something that our families and friends can enjoy.
All right, thank you, Mr. Archer. And now the question goes to you, Mr. Austin.
Thank you. If you ever driven by a library recently, I did the other day, and I noticed there were 15, 20, sometimes 30 cars, and so on my way to work every day. These things are so important to a lot of people, and I believe we need one to stay in the North End in District 5, and in fact, I'd be in favor of putting more in. These opportunities that we need to address as far as the library goes are something we just can't turn our back on. I know there was a funding issue in the past, but it's something I believe that is absolutely critical to the growth of our economy.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Berry, we were talking about libraries and your opinion on whether having one within a reasonable distance in District 5 is important to those the voters who live there.
Well, absolutely, reading is important to academic development. I don't think there's any question of that. I'm very pleased about some of the discussion that the county's having now when they're talking about dispersing local option sales tax money for capital projects like libraries. When you look at a brick and mortar structure like that without accounting for how the ongoing expenses of that entity are going to be accounted for, that's an issue. So maybe the future and maybe a more feasible economical scenario is a future with less brick and mortar, maybe more metal building and rock driveways with 65 computer terminals with internet access in them, which is what the majority of the youth and the users of the library would be on anyways.
All right, thank you, sir. And now the question goes to you, Ms. Burkett.
Well, cultural advancement is extremely important to any community, to any, to just our livelihoods, you know, to our life in itself. Libraries are extremely important because our children, as well as us, use them. It's a wealth of information. It has computers and books and videos and everything that we would want to have. So I think it's extremely important to maintain those. Possibly some of the BP money could be used in our area because we plan lots of growth and development in District 5. So.
All right, thank you. And finally, the question to you, Mr. Taylor, regarding libraries and the importance, perhaps, of the residents of your district and having a public library that's within a reasonable distance to them.
I answered it first.
Oh, you did answer that first. Yes, you did.
All right.
Well, then, here we go. We're moving right along now to the closing statements, right, Sandra?
That's right. And thanks to each of our candidates for your answers. And now we are moving to the closing statements, and each of you will have 45 seconds. And we are back to the beginning now, and we'll start with you, Mr. Archer.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, ladies, again for hosting this evening. I'm Sam Archer, a lifelong resident of District 5. I've seen you out there along the road or through your front door. I've asked you for your vote and your support. I am the son of the Honorable Judge E.G. Archer and Christine Archer, who were faithful public servants of District 5. I do have the background in business and upper-level corporate management, and we're facing a situation now with the county to where we need to have a person in office that can make the hard decisions and the corporate-level decisions with the BP money, with the Airbus project, the possible spinoffs that we can get in Escambia County for that, and there are lots of opportunities there. So we need to be ready to go after that.
All right,
so
thank you, sir.
On August 14th,
you,
I'd ask for your vote and your support.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Austin, it is now your opportunity for a closing remark or closing statement, 45 seconds.
All right. This whole race is not about how many signs you have, how much money you have in your campaign account. This isn't what this is all about. I got into this race for one reason only. It's about jobs. I own a business. I've got 22 employees. We're struggling. Every business owner I know is struggling. If you drive across this county, it's either half for sale or for rent. I know how to create jobs as a small business, and I feel the government that we have here, the county commission, needs a leader, somebody who knows what's going on in the small business world, and that's why I got into this race. This is about job creation, bringing industry here and growing what we have here in Escambia County. And I know we can do it. I need your help, and I can do it one vote at a time on August 14th.
All right, thanks to you, Mr. Austin. And now, Mr. Berry, your opportunity for closing remarks.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank WSRE and the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's very nice. My name is Stephen Berry, and I'm asking for your Republican vote on August 14th in the primary. I feel like I've got the opportunity to have the ability to serve the public as well as the right kind of attitude, which is one of service. I'd love the opportunity to engage with you and be able to earn your vote. My cell phone number is 341-2424. My website is stephenberry2012.com, and my email is stephenberry2012@yahoo.com. All I'd ask is if there's something where if you knew it, you feel like you might would vote for me, is reach out and give me an opportunity to earn that vote.
All right, thank you, sir. And now, Ms. Burkett, your opportunity for closing remarks.
Thank you very much for having us here tonight. As you can see, probably, I'm not your typical candidate. I am, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. I'm a wife of 40 years. I'm a mother of 3. I'm a grandmother of 2. I'm a nurse. I have been for 25 years. I'm an active member of my church. But I am an American citizen, a Republican American citizen, who is really wanting to make a change in our government. So I ask, if you will, first and foremost, even if you don't agree with my faith or participate in my faith, I ask that you pray about your decisions that are coming up, whether it's me or one of the others. Just pray that God puts His people in office.
All right, thanks, Ms. Burkett. And finally, to you, Mr. Taylor, 45 seconds for your closing statement.
Well, I want to say thank you for having us, and I am Jim Taylor. I'm a 35-year employee of the Escambia County School System. I have a master's degree in leadership. I was born and raised here. My family has over 100 years of service to the school systems of Escambia and Santa Rosa County. So I really want to consider me for your vote. I want you to send somebody to the county office who's not a billionaire or a millionaire, who's not out here with a hidden agenda, who goes to work every day and has gone to work every day to look out for the people of this county. I've worked very hard to solve problems for the people of Escambia County and District 5, both in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. So please remember to vote for Jim Taylor, tailor-made for Commissioner, District 5 on August 14th.
All right, thank you very much. Our candidates for County Commission, District 5.
And that wraps up those questions, but we are now, Sandra, in the home stretch, and we have 3 more races still ahead, so we're going to take a look now at what's coming up. And welcome back to Rally 2012, where candidates are facing questions relative to the upcoming primary election in Florida. The next race on the agenda this evening is for Escambia County, make that Emerald Coast Utilities Authority, ECUA, District 1. And there are 2 Republican candidates. The winner in the primary will face 3 candidates listed as no party affiliation in the general election. The first candidate that you're going to meet this evening is Vicki H. Campbell. And seated next to her, in alphabetical order, as we have been doing all evening long, is Logan Fink. And in the interest of disclosure, we wanted to mention that Logan Fink is an associate professor, full-time professor in Pensacola State College, and we wanted to make that known. Now, we are going to get ahead with the questions, and candidates, each of you will have 45 seconds to answer your questions, and we are going to begin with you, Ms. Campbell. Question number 1. Please discuss whether there is adequate protection for contamination in freshwater wells owned by the ECUA. And again, the question goes to you first, Ms. Campbell.
I know that there are pollutants that pollute our water, but I do believe that our wells are well taken care of. They do take a lot of time, and they do take a lot of personal knowledge, and I believe our staff has plenty of personal knowledge, and I believe that they take very good care of the wells. I was out visiting, and they told me that, you know, they have strict guidelines that they follow, and they're out there every day looking at the wells and making sure that the amounts of fluoride and chlorine and whatever are correct.
All right, thank you. And now the question goes to you, Mr. Fink. Would you please discuss whether there is adequate protection from contamination in freshwater wells that are owned by the ECUA?
The wells that are owned by ECUA have a fairly large protection area around them, so that people cannot do things that would be harmful, that would go through the sand and gravel aquifer and get into the well. So we have those out there. Now we have some wells which are contaminated, but we have carbon filters, those great big drums on them, which do a very good job of filtering out the material, mostly organics that's in the water. So it's pretty well protected. There's a protection field around the wells, and so contamination is pretty well limited.
All right, thank you, sir. Question number 2 to the candidates. What is your position on ECUA acquiring private water companies such as Peoples and Farm Hill in order to establish a unified system in the metropolitan part of Escambia County? And this question goes to you first, Mr. Fink.
The smaller utilities are challenged many times about being able to acquire the necessary funds to take care of their systems. Sooner or later, all of these systems, as they age, will be bought out by ECUA. How long that will take, I don't know, but I think it will be a good thing. It will stabilize water quality, it will stabilize rates, and I think it'll help growth in those communities.
All right, thank you, sir. And now, Ms. Campbell, to you, what is your position on ECUA acquiring private water companies such as Peoples and Farm Hill in order to establish a unified system in the metropolitan part of Escambia County?
Well, ECUA provides most of the water for Escambia County. There are pockets like Gonzales and Warrington that have other franchises. I know a couple of years ago that Peoples Water wanted ECUA to, some of the people that had Peoples Water wanted ECUA to take them over. But those franchises have many years on them, so if they're not willing to sell, then we can't just take them over. I do think once those franchises start to expire, it would be something we need to research.
All right, thank you. And now we're up to question number 3. ECUA is in the process of adapting its vehicles to natural gas. Should the projected cost savings result in lower fees for utility services? And we pose that question to you first, Ms. Campbell.
Environmentally conscious communities are magnets for economic development. I believe that recently ECUA converted their trucks, one fleet of their trucks, to natural gas. I think the savings are somewhere around $900,000 a year for fuel and $300,000 for maintenance. I am all for that, and I think that's a very good decision.
All right, thank you. And the question now goes to you, Mr. Fink. ECUA is in the process of adapting its vehicles to natural gas. Should the projected cost savings result in lower fees for utility services?
The cost of operating those vehicles is considerably less, as well as the maintenance on those vehicles. And those fees, those savings should be passed on to consumers. So somewhere down the line, those things should balance out, and it should show up in the consumer's bill.
All right, thank you, sir. And now we're down to the final question for this race, and this question will go to you first, Mr. Fink. What is your vision for the Main Street sewage plant site?
The Main Street sewage plant site is a very valuable asset. I really think personally that something that pays taxes to the city and pays taxes to the county should be considered in there, but it should be consistent with the plans around the ball stadium and such as that. An option that has been put on the table by some folks is trading the land for the garbage collection in the city. I think that would be a good thing to consider. So those are things that are on the table. Those are things being looked at. So we should think about those.
All right, thank you, sir. And the question to you now, Ms. Campbell, what is your vision for the Main Street sewage plant site?
That property is the key to the success of the Community Maritime Park. I think we should have multifamily in there to populate that park when there's not ball games going on, and the renaissance of it would push over to the west side and north all the way up to DeViller. I do know that the city is interested in the property, and we should negotiate that. I don't think we need to give it away because it is the ratepayers' property, and the bonds, the property should be sold and the money go towards the bonds to pay off the new treatment plant. But I do think we can negotiate, and if the sanitation service is a sweetener in that negotiation, I'm all for it.
All right, thank you. And that does conclude the question and answer session for this race. Now, each of our candidates will have 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. We began the questions with you, Ms. Campbell, so we are going to begin the closing statements with you, Mr. Fink.
When you look at qualifications, when you look at background, the technical qualifications and experiential background, I've been on the board for 8 years. when you look at that, when you look at the history that I have of working with ECUA, of helping move the plant and moving a very green plant, making it almost a zero discharge plant. The wastewater goes to Gulf Power and to International Paper. When you look at my vision for the future of helping clean up some of those wells and get those contaminated wells out of the system by going north of town and putting in a well field and bringing that water down and getting those carbon filtered wells out of the system. When you look at all of that, if those things are important and if those things are important to voters, then you need to vote for me on August 14th for ECUA District 1.
All right, thank you. And now, Ms. Campbell, to you for your closing statement, and you will have 45 seconds as well.
I'd like to thank you for having me here tonight, and I'd like to thank the people, if you're out there still listening this late at night, for caring about your community enough to listen to the candidates speak tonight. An ECUA board member is there to create policy. They're there as a fiduciary responsibility to the ratepayers. I'm a business person. I've been a businesswoman for 20 years. I serve on a state board, and I'm the budget liaison for that state board. I also was a treasurer for a chamber of commerce. I know how to run a business. I also know how to read and how to trim a budget. I know how to create policy, how to talk to legislators, how to gain cooperation from my constituents, my colleagues, and anyone necessary to achieve an established goal. But most of all, I know how to serve, and I would like to serve as your next ECUA representative for District 1.
And thank you, candidates, for ECUA District 1.
Moving along now to the race for ECUA District 3. There are 4 Democratic candidates and no opposing party candidates. This is a universal race, and it will be decided in the August primary. That's August 14th. Now let's introduce the candidates. The first candidate in the District 3 ECUA race is Calvin Avant. Welcome, Mr. Avant.
Thank you.
Seated next to him in alphabetical order is Benell English. Welcome to you, sir. Moving along the table, the third candidate is Elvin McCorvey. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And in our fourth chair, our final candidate is Clarissa Mitchell. Welcome to you, Clarissa.
Good evening.
Ms. Mitchell. All right, it is now time for our questions, and we just would like to remind you that they were provided for us by the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area, and our candidates, each of you have 45 seconds to answer the questions. We'll begin with Mr. Avant. The first question will go to you. Please comment on ECUA's role in relation to the problem of the toxic plume, which is moving from the former Agrico plant and spreading throughout the East Hill neighborhoods.
I actually grew up in that community, and do understand the problems that have been created from that. I actually have had a couple of family members to die who I felt that was had because of the toxic waste from that area. And our infrastructure is crumbling, and that's part of what is creating. I'm mighty afraid that toxic waste will be getting into our system by virtue of antiquated systems.
Thank you, sir. Moving next to Mr. English, Benell English. This same question to you. Please comment, sir, on the ECUA's role in relation to the problem of the toxic plume that is moving, or the plume moving from the former Agrico site and spreading through the East Hill neighborhoods.
Yes, I believe that with the plume moving toward the neighborhood, the ECUA should give priority to upgrading the piping system in that area, so that residents in that area are protected from the toxins within the groundwater. Okay, we have to do more testing of the ground wells in that area to ensure that they are safe and drinkable. Okay, we have to do all that we can do to ensure the citizens are protected.
All right, thank you. And that same question to you, Mr. McCorvey. And do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
No.
Okay.
I live in the East Hill area, and I know there is a problem with toxics in the groundwater. ECUA responsibility is to make sure that the drinking water we deliver to our customers are protected from those toxins in the groundwater. We replace water lines on a regular basis, and we try to make sure that the new pipes we put in the ground would be able to withstand any toxins in that area. And
5 seconds.
Okay. In addition, we are looking to move all wells out of that area. We have moved most of the wells.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, moving across the table, it is Ms. Mitchell's opportunity to respond. We are asking for your comment on ECUA's role in relation to the problem of the toxic plume, which is moving from the former Agrico plant and into the East Hill neighborhoods.
I believe that since ECUA is responsible for our quality drinking water, that we need to make sure that we're maintaining our pipes. We need to make sure, as far as the leaks or cracks that are there, that as this plume moves forward, as they begin to clean that up, that it's not able to go into our drinking water. And I think that's ECUA's key role, is to make sure that the infrastructure that we have in place is properly working, and the infrastructure, which is old, since this is an old city, is replaced timely, so that we won't have that problem of it getting into our drinking water.
All right, thank you. We're now up to question number 2, and it will go first to Mr. English. The question is, the septic tank law, which would have required inspection of septic tanks every 5 years, was repealed by the Florida legislature. What impact do you think that will have on ECUA's obligation to protect our water supply? And again, Mr. English, first to you.
Okay, I do feel that the law was unjust and it should have been repealed. And also I do believe that septic tanks should be a thing of the past. I think as we go on, that we should try to get all our citizens tied onto the main waste sewer line in order to save our environment for the future. So I do believe that that we should also do more for citizens to get them educated and get them tied on to the wastewater sewer line.
All right, thank you. Mr. McCorvey, that question to you. What do you think the impact of the repeal of the septic tank law by the legislature will have on ECUA's obligation to protect our water supply?
I think it's going to make us more careful about protecting our wellheads, because as you have those septic tanks out there, they are leaching into the groundwater and putting toxin in the groundwater. So all of our wells, not all of our wells, but most of our wells are protected by a carbon granulated filtering process to make sure that no toxins get into our drinking water. And plus we have a SCADA system that protects us from foreign objects getting our water supply.
All right, thank you. And that question now to Ms. Mitchell. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, no need.
Your response.
I think part of what we need to do, it is about education. It's time to move forward from the septic tanks system that are in the areas that are still being used. It's time to move forward and go into our new system so that we won't have the contamination problem, so that the other parts of the infrastructure that we do need to deal with, that we can go ahead and do that. But yeah, we need to move forward from the septic tanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. And finally, that question to Mr. Avant. We're talking about the repeal, the legislature's repeal of the septic tank law, and what impact do you think it will have on ECUA's obligation to protect our water supply?
Again, I also believe that the repeal was the correct thing to do. And we do understand that that the septic waste from the septics will get into our water system, and it will put ECUA on a fast track to assure that all of the other residents in our district are tied into the sewer system, so that they will not have that particular problem. And I know that's something that will take a while to happen, but we have to, as a part of our strategic plan, look to put that in place.
All right, thank you. And we're now up to question number 3, and it'll go first to Mr. McCorvey. One proposal of the former, or rather for the former Main Street treatment, sewage treatment property is that the ECUA donate the property to the city of Pensacola in exchange for the city's garbage collection franchise. What, in your opinion, should be done with that property?
The property should be sold. In our bond covenants, we pledged that property as part of a payoff for the bonds that we borrowed in order to build that plant. So whatever monies that are gained from that plant, sale of that property, has to go to the bank to help pay off the monies that we borrowed to complete that project.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Mitchell, that question to you. What, in your opinion, should be done with the property, the site of the former Main Street wastewater sewage treatment plant?
2 things. First and foremost, I think the community needs to decide what's done with that wastewater plant. Being it sold to the highest bidder or redeveloping it and making it a part of the Maritime Park. I think whatever we decide to do, one, it needs to be green. We need to truly look at the impact to our environment with whatever decision that's made. But I think it's the community that needs to make that decision.
All right, thank you. And we are back down the line, and as we are moving across the table, we're back to Mr. Avant, and we're looking for your response. What is, in your opinion, what do you think should be done with that downtown wastewater treatment site property?
As Mr. McCorvey has said, the board has kind of put us in a catch-22 position where we have to sell the property and pay for the bonds that have been taken out for the rebuilding of the removal of the Main Street project. But I felt like if community input had been given, we probably would have not taken that as the direction to go. We would have probably wanted to sell the property to the highest bidder and use it for either lowering our rates or covering, helping with the infrastructure problem that we have.
All right, thank you. And finally, we have a rebuttal. Yes. You'd like to hold that thought. We will get Mr. English's comments on this question. We're seeking your opinion, sir, on what should be done with the property where the old wastewater treatment plant downtown now sits.
Thank you. Well, first, I believe that it should not have been part of a sidebar agreement with any organization. It should be with the people of the Escambia County what to do with their property. But since we know now that they have an agreement to sell it to the highest bidder and also give the first option to the city of Pensacola for their waste pickup, one of the things that I wouldn't mind seeing happen is they want to do a trade-off for the property for the city's waste collection. That's a good option to look at. If the option is property for the city's trash pickup, and that only, no other liabilities involved. That would be a good trade-off for the ECUA and its ratepayers.
All right, thanks, Mr. English. And now we have a rebuttal from Mr. McCorvey. 30 seconds.
Yes. That was not an option on what we could do with that land, because the monies that we got from the bank, we had to pledge that property to pay off some of the bonds because we took a loan out for it. And it was not something either or. We needed that money to complete the Main Street project. So therefore, we had to get that money in order to complete the project.
All right, thank you, sir. We're now up to question number 4 for our ECUA District 3 candidates, and this is Escambia County, of course. And it will go first to you, Ms. Mitchell. The question is, how would you rate ECUA's expansion of municipal sewer systems in Escambia County?
Okay, as far as our sewage system, our infrastructure is old. The pipes, there's so many things that need to be replaced. So as far as how I would rate it, the rating right now would not be very good. Right now, it's my understanding we spend between $500,000 to $1 million replacing parts of our sewage. And like we had that 100-year flood, I like to call it, back at the beginning of June, where parts of our city was just underwater. I remember climbing out my van and being in 3 feet of water. And I think a part of that, yes, I understand it was a lot of rain in a short amount of time, but I also believe that a part of that happened because of our sewage system, because where my car flooded.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next to Mr. Avant with this question. How would you rate ECUA's expansion of its municipal sewer systems in Escambia County?
In certain parts of Escambia County, they've done well. I've talked to some residents in District 3 who have had some issues with them coming online and putting them onto the sewer system. They received letters telling them to go and prepare their system to be ready to add it onto the sewer system. And then they came back to find out that they were not ready for them. And they spent money that they shouldn't have spent. And they came back and asked ECUA to refund the funds back to them. And ECUA said that they had to do it anyway. So they just, but I believe I saved my money better than anyone else.
Thank you, sir. All right, now to Mr. English for his comments, and we're talking about ECUA's expansion of the municipal sewer systems in Escambia County and how the candidates would rate that. And Mr. English, your response.
At the present time, I got to give it a C, maybe a C+. If you put down a new system and then you spend more time digging it up to replace things that you break, when you put it down, it goes a long way to say that maybe you did not do a good job, in your planning and putting in the right equipment, the right product in the ground in the first place. So I give it a C+. But overall, though, it's a good thing for the citizens of Escambia County, to be tied on to the Main Street, water system, sewage system. It helps us all. But overall, though, I give it a C+ for its timeliness. In less than 2 years old in some areas, and pipes are already bursting.
All right, thank you. And finally, Mr. McCorvey, your opportunity for a response. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I think we did an excellent job in putting in and expanding the sewer service. That's something we committed to do several years ago, and we have had high success with that, because we make it possible for everyone to tie on to the system, whether they have the resources or not. We set up a fund to help pay the cost of abandonment from the old septic tanks to switch to our sewer service. So I think we did an excellent job, and the pipes that we put in the ground, the new pipes, did not burst. We haven't had problems with those. The problems we're having with the older part of the city, where there are older pipes, and we have a program every year to replace those pipes.
All right, thank you. And we're up to question number 5 now for our ECUA District 3 candidates. The question is, how should ECUA proceed in developing and promoting the use of recycled water on appropriate sites throughout the county? And we are back to the beginning in alphabetical order. Mr. Avant.
Recycled water is excellent, and if it's used correctly. If it's put in place where you have to water your yards and any other use of that water that does not that is not used for drinking, it's an excellent source of utilizing and not having to go back and use the high quality water that we would use for drinking. So anything that if it's for animals or other things outside of human consumption, it would be an excellent use of our funds.
All right, thank you, sir. And now for the response from Mr. English. We are seeking your thoughts on how the ECUA should proceed in developing and promoting the use of recycled water on appropriate sites throughout the county.
Yes, there are sites that can utilize recycled water more so than the citizens of Escambia County. We have several industries within the county that can utilize, recycled water from ECUA. We should develop ways to providing that to them, in a cost-effective manner. But also, if we get it, use it within the county, I've said we should make sure that it is filtered, to standards and levels that reflect, the needs of the people. But recycled water for industry use is a good thing. We can make sure that we get it to them.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. McCorvey, your thoughts on how the ECUA should proceed in the use of recycled water on appropriate sites.
Yes, when we designed the new wastewater treatment plant, we included recycling of that water to industries in the local area. One is Gulf Power, the other one is International Paper. And by recycling the water, we are preventing millions of gallons of water being taken from our sand and gravel aquifer each day. So it is a very progressive plan, even on Pensacola Beach. The water there is being used to water the green areas on Pensacola Beach, and I just think we've done a wonderful job with it.
All right, thank you. And now to you, Ms. Mitchell, we're seeking your thoughts on how ECUA should proceed in the use of recycled water on appropriate sites in the county.
Recycled water should be mainly used for industry use. As McCarvey just mentioned, as far as Gulf Power, our paper company, using it as far as green use, those various nurseries, it should mainly and strictly be used for those purposes, because that would save an incredible amount of water. And it's about watching out for our environment and what we're going to leave our children's children.
All right, thank you, candidates. And now each of you has 45 seconds to deliver a closing statement. And this time, we'll start with Mr. English. 45 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, on August 14th, you have a choice to make. If you desire to be more involved within the ECUA and have quarterly meetings, vote for me. If you desire to keep your rates low, vote for me. If you desire to be a more informed citizen, to be more proactive and not reactive, vote for me. On August 14th, it's time for new leadership, new direction, and new way of doing things. August 14th, vote for me. Benell English, ECUA District 3.
All right, thank you, Mr. English. And now, Mr. McCorvey, 45 seconds for your closing statement.
Yes. If you look at my record on the ECUA board, you will see that over the last 16 years, we have transformed the ECUA from a rusty, old utility into a state-of-the-art utility today. We won a national award for the construction and the design of the new wastewater treatment plant. We have people coming from all over the world to look at this plant. And I will continue to work to improve ECUA. I will make sure that we provide quality drinking water as we are doing now, and protecting the health and well-being of our citizens.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mitchell, now your opportunity for closing remarks, a closing statement.
I'm asking for your vote on August 14th for me, Clarissa Mitchell. I'm passionate about our environment. I'm passionate about our community. I do think it's time for my generation to step up to the front lines and pour into, as it was poured into me as I was coming up in this community. I do believe that each and every decision that's made needs to be a green decision, needs to be a decision that we have a long-range plan for replacing our infrastructure, not trying to do things as it comes up or as we see more and more boil water warnings, but we're taking care of it to prevent those boil water warnings or future floods and things of that nature. So a vote for me is a vote for our community and for our community to also have an open dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now time for closing remarks, a closing statement from Mr. Avant.
A vote for me would be a person that's going to focus on the repair of our antiquated infrastructure. We will also revisit our long-term strategic plan that I feel like we've missed somewhere along the line. We will look to promote green projects to ensure high water quality. I also believe in term limits. And at some point, we need to have a new direction for ECUA. And this is it's time now to vote Calvin Avant on August 14th for a new direction for ECUA.
All right, thank you. Candidates for Emerald Coast Utilities Authority, ECUA District 3.
And now we move into the final race for the evening, and that is for ECUA District 5. There are 3 Republican candidates. This is a universal race. All voters in District 5 can cast a ballot, and the winner will be decided in the primary. We're going to introduce the candidates to you now. And in the first seat this evening is Barry B. Tweedy. Seated next to Mr. Tweedy is Larry Walker. And the third candidate this evening in the race was unable to attend. That candidate is Charlou Williams. We are going to get straight to the questions now, and Mr. Tweedy, we are going to begin with you. Question number 1. The ECUA has adopted annual rate increases, pointing to the need to repair crumbling infrastructure. Will you vote to continue these rate increases? And if not, how would you propose to pay for the upgrades? And again, we start with you, Mr. Tweedy. You have 45 seconds.
Thank you very much. I would prefer to only have rate increases that are in line with the cost of living adjustment that happens every year. It hasn't happened a couple times lately, but the 8 and 9% rate increases I think are excessive, and has been mentioned a 25%, a possible 25% rate increase is a non-starter with me.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tweedy. And now we put the question to you, Mr. Walker. The ECUA adopted annual rate increases, saying that there is a need to pay for repair crumbling infrastructure. Will you vote to continue these increases? And if not, how would you propose to pay for the upgrades?
Thank you. The ECUA has, at this point, voted for rate increases for 3 consecutive years. Beyond that, we have nothing already on paper. But it is entirely possible, and it's most likely, that we will have to have rate increases every year because of a consent order that we recently signed with the FDEP to do a great deal of repair and maintenance of our wastewater collection system.
All right, thank you. And this time the question is going to start with you, Mr. Walker. And this question, do you believe salaries and pensions for ECUA employees measure up to those with comparable jobs in the local private sector? And if not, how do you propose to address the pay issue?
We address the pay issue every year. We address it each year in our budget process as we decide whether to give pay increases and as we decide about pension and other benefits. Health benefits are a major problem. They're very expensive, increases every year. This year, 9%, I think, was the increase for health insurance. So we deal with these issues. Some years, in some recent years, we have had no pay raises. In fact, in I think 3 of the last 4 years, we have not had pay raises. It's never an easy decision.
All right, thank you, sir. And now the question to you, Mr. Tweedy. Do you believe that salaries and pensions for ECUA employees measure up with comparable jobs in the local private sector? And if not, how do you propose to address the pay issue?
I believe that the wages of staff and employees at the ECUA is already adequate for the positions that they hold. As Mr. Walker has said, they look at the salary every year and adjust it as the board sees fit. Board salaries are hooked to the school board salaries, so they're linked by the legislature.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tweedy. And time now for question number 3. Question number 2, rather. What kind of development would you like to see at the former Main Street sewage treatment plant site? Water treatment plant site. And the question goes to you first, Mr. Tweedy.
Thank you. I don't care what kind of a development they have down there or what becomes of the property. The important thing to me is that the ratepayers get the maximum dollar value for the sale of the old Main Street wastewater treatment plant property.
All right, thank you. And the same question goes to you now, Mr. Walker. Would you like for me to repeat that?
No, I think I heard the question. I don't care what is done with the property as far as being an ECUA board member. It's not for us to say what it will be done with the property once it is no longer belongs to us. I think basically we should sell it to the highest bidder. As a citizen of the community, I hope that it is used in a way that will contribute to the revitalization of the downtown area.
All right, thank you. It's been a long night. We've asked an awful lot of questions here this evening. So now we are going to get to question number 4 for this group of candidates. The Environmental Working Group report tagged Escambia County as having one of the 10 worst drinking water systems in the nation. What is your response to this criticism? And we'll start with you, Mr. Walker.
My response to that criticism is that it is hokum. It is a very invalid study. It was very poor science, and I am a trained social scientist. I can read scientific literature and understand whether it's well done or not. And I can tell you that study was not a legitimate scientific study, and ECUA's water is nowhere close to being that bad. It is good water.
All right, thank you. And the question now to you, Mr. Tweedy. The Environmental Working Group report tagged Escambia County as having one of the 10 worst drinking water systems in the nation. Your response, sir, to that criticism?
I believe that study, I share Mr. Walker's view on that. That was a bogus study. That many of the other cities tested were much larger than Pensacola, and Pensacola had no permit excursions, or I should say perhaps they did not exceed the maximum contaminant level that is mandated by EPA. Our water was good. However, some of the other cities had water failing that you wouldn't want to drink.
All right, thank you, sir. And that does wrap it up for the questions for the candidates for ECUA District 5, but it's time now for closing statements. And we began the questions with you, Mr. Tweedy, so now we are going to begin the closing statements with you, Mr. Walker, and you will have 45 seconds, sir.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the privilege of having served on the ECUA board since the 1980s. If I'm elected again, I will continue to serve with energy, integrity, and respect for every citizen. If you call, I'll answer. If you invite, I'll be there. I also will continue to serve as a responsible policymaker and a defender of the public interest. Please vote on August 14, and please vote for Larry Walker. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. And now we go to you, Mr. Tweedy. You have 45 seconds to make your closing statement, sir.
Thank you. I'm Barry Tweedy, a Republican candidate for ECUA in District 5. I have, since year 2000, served on various committees at the ECUA, and I make a point of attending all committee and board meetings. Important to me is ensuring that we get for the ratepayers the maximum dollar value for the old Main Street wastewater treatment plant land. The city of Pensacola committed to give $19 million toward moving the plant. They haven't paid anything yet. The ECUA ratepayers so far are carrying those costs, the load for the city. The idea has been floated in the News Journal that the city renegotiate the deal and use the money to purchase the 18.8 acres site. This is a non-starter with me also. Also mentioned is trading the land for the city sanitation department. Remember those untitled or unfunded retirement liabilities?
Thank you, sir.
We don't want them.
Thank you, Mr. Tweedy. And that is going to do it now for Rally 2012. It's been an interesting 3 nights. We hope that you have enjoyed hearing from the candidates in Okaloosa, in Santa Rosa, and Escambia counties, as well as candidates from several of the state races as well.
As a matter of fact, and of course we are approaching the primary election, Drexel, on August 14th. So we hope you will again, that you've enjoyed being with us as we've enjoyed being here.
Yeah, and that you've learned something about the candidates for which you will be voting in the upcoming election. I'm Drexel Gilbert.
And I'm Sandra Averhart. Again, we thank you for joining us, and we certainly encourage you to vote. And then we'll see you in the fall with previews of the general election.
Have a safe night.
There is nothing more important to our democratic process than having an informed electorate voting on Election Day. Good evening. I'm Ed Meadows, President of Pensacola State College, thanking you for tuning into Rally 2012, a joint presentation of the League of Women Voters, WSRE TV, and Pensacola State College. Rally allows you the opportunity to watch and listen as this election year slate of candidates answer the tough questions concerning the needs of our community and state. WSRE, a service of Pensacola State College, is proud to bring this program to you as a public service. And as always, we invite your comments and suggestions about how we can further fulfill our community obligations. Let's all remember the importance of participating in the governance process by voting in this upcoming election.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Okaloosa County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Okaloosa County Supervisor of Elections office. You can write, phone, fax, email, or log on to their website. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections offices by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, August 4th through Saturday, August 11th at the 4 locations that are listed on your screen. Hours for early voting are 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. on Wednesday and Saturday, and 11 a.m. until 5 on Sunday. On the day of the primary election, Tuesday, August 14th, voting takes place at your polling location from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered. Make sure you take along a photo and signature ID with you.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Santa Rosa County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Santa Rosa County Supervisor of Elections office by phone, mail, fax, or email. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, August 4th through Saturday, August 11th at the Santa Rosa Supervisor of Elections office in Milton and at the South Santa Rosa Service Center on Highway 98 in Gulf Breeze. Early voting hours each day are 8 a.m. until 5:30 p.m., including Saturday and Sunday. On the day of the primary election, Tuesday, August 14th, voting takes place from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered, and be sure to bring photo and signature ID with you.
There are 3 ways to cast a ballot in Escambia County: by mail, early voting, or at your precinct on Election Day. To vote by mail, contact the Escambia County Supervisor of Elections office. You can write, phone, fax, email, or log on to their website. Ballots must reach the Supervisor of Elections office by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Early voting takes place from Saturday, August 4th through Saturday, August 11th at the 4 locations listed on your screen. Early voting times on August 4th and 5th are 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. From August 6th until the 11th, early voting times are 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. On the day of the primary election, Tuesday, August 14th, voting takes place at your polling location from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. You must vote in the precinct in which you live and are registered. To verify your precinct, log on to escambiavotes.com. Make sure you take along a photo and signature ID with you.
Thanks for watching this year's rally event on WSRE TV. I'm Rosemary Hayes Thomas. Dr. Paula Montgomery and I serve as co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of the Pensacola Bay Area. For over 20 years, the leagues here and in Okaloosa County have provided questions for events like tonight's forum as a service to our local communities. Our democracy is based on active participation by informed citizens, and voting is an important way to participate. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, which means we don't support or oppose parties or candidates. This rally is one way for us to make accurate and nonpartisan information available to voters. You can also contact us for explanations of the amendments, merit retention of judges, and other ballot issues. We invite women and men to attend our public events or to join us as members of the League. Please see our website for more information or to contact us. And please, remember to be an informed voter this year.